Chapter 550. Let me tell you, traveler from another world. Fu Ling immediately continued. The ugliest moment in the world is the moment when the most beautiful thing is destroyed. Her tone was filled with hatred. Every word that came out of her mouth was filled with hatred and pain. Before she finished speaking, Fu Ling raised her arm and pointed. In the next second, a dung dragon came out of the swamp and rushed towards Feng Bujue. When Brother Ju saw this, he shouted and turned around quickly. He used his feet as a drill and used Rankyaku. In an instant, the dung dragon flew and slashed. The waves of light from Rankyaku overlapped like a huge wave and slowly tore the dung dragon apart. After the wave slash, Feng Bujue successfully neutralized all of Fu Ling's attacks. However, Fu Ling did not stop. She put her arms together and used another technique. A strong gust of wind came out of Fu Ling's palms. Even if this dark brown gas cannonball could not kill someone, it could kill someone with its smell. Rankyaku would be hard to deal with such an attack that did not have a physical body. Feng Bujue could only turn around and jump down to escape the attack range. This boss seems to be a dummy. When Brother Ju moved in the air, he thought to himself, her lower body is stuck in the swamp, and her upper body is rotating very slowly. That means, as long as I quickly go behind her and attack her waist, she will not be able to dodge. Thinking about this, Feng Bujue continued to use Body Enhancement spell, and used his feet to use Jeppo. He stepped in the air 3 times. His body was like a ray of light, and he instantly closed in on Fu Ling's waist. Since I'm wearing gloves, I'll go all out. Feng Bujue also understood that it was impossible to kill this boss without coming into contact with her. In order to minimize the number of times he came into contact with her, he decided that if he did not attack, he would use a killing move. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A sharp whistling sound was suddenly heard. There was a soft force hidden in the strong palm wind, and a domineering, flying dragon rose to kill. A move of the Southern Dipper Flying Dragon Fist was unleashed. The dangerous energy was like a violent storm, striking right at Fu Ling's spine, at the same time on the other side of the swamp. Did you guys hear that? Flying Pegasus, who was walking in the middle of the group, suddenly asked. I heard it. This wind. Atobi replied. It sounds like someone is screaming. It should be some kind of scary sound effect, Uncle Worthless said. Many scripts have it, Hong Hu added. That's right. I once queued up a single-player Nightmare Instance dungeon, and the setting was that the player would be harassed by Ghost Whisperer from start to finish. He adjusted his glasses. Even now, when I think about it, it still makes my hair stand on end. I hate this kind of roundabout scaring people the most. Unconstrained said, How should I put it? Hong Hu continued, The beating around the bush that you mentioned can also be said to be an exaggeration of the atmosphere, which is a relatively advanced means of scaring people. Compared to those direct visual effects, this kind of method is much more effective. He paused, using a barely discernible sound or image to cause people to form associations and build up the fear. Finally, it will explode at an unexpected point, and the effect will be 1 + 1 is greater than 2. I wonder how Brother Feng is doing now, Uncle Worthless said. In this kind of atmosphere, it will be easier for him to wander alone, won't it? Impossible, Atobi and Hong Hu said at the same time. Don't worry, he has no idea how happy he is on his own, Uncle Worthless added. Atobi added, that man would never let his mind wander because his mind is always working on some kind of evil plan. One time, he stayed alone in a city filled with mutated zombies and built a base to lure and kill zombies. The place had a wide field of vision, plenty of ammo, and plenty of bait. Plus, he had the accompaniment of a beep. That's right, the man is definitely not a normal person. Hong Hu added, I have not seen him afraid of anything. He paused for 2 seconds before continuing. You know about the drug used by the people from Zombie Blade, right? Even if they use the drug, it is impossible for them to get rid of the fear completely. Furthermore, the drug slows down their reaction, and their facial expression is rather wooden. He pushed on his glasses. But Brother Feng is truly fearless. In the dungeon that I have been through with him, he requested to do the investigation alone in the dark many times, and he was as calm as ever. I really have no idea how the man's mind works. Oh, okay, looks like I was worried for nothing. Uncle Worthless replied awkwardly. He did not have any direct interaction with Brother Jew during the tournament for the best. He had only watched a few videos of Brother Jew's matches after the tournament, and knew that the man was very strong and had a very wild personality. Uncle Worthless did not expect that. This man was stranger than he thought. To be able to make Ambitionist and Atobi. So far, Uncle Worthless still believed that Atobi was a hidden expert, come out and give him an inhuman evaluation. This man was not simple. Is that a stone road ahead? Right then, Imaginative Horse saw something over Uncle Worthless' shoulder, and he yelled, "Yes, there are about 10 more meters before we cross the swamp," Uncle Worthless said as he took off the helmet on his head. "The light path disappears after this." Phew, Atobi sighed. Phone Bujiwe is not wrong. By now, our sense of smell has probably gone numb. I did not even notice the smell had faded. Indeed, at some point, the four of them had stopped covering their noses and mouths. This meant that they had gotten used to the stench. Wait, what is that? Hong Hu, who walked at the back, suddenly noticed something and reminded them. It's over there, at the edge of the swamp. The group followed his instruction and looked forward. They saw, at the edge of the swamp, where the mud met the stone road, there was a strange shadow wiggling on the ground. Upon closer inspection, it looked like a large palm, and it was caressing the ground. On the other hand, they returned to the battlefield where the hidden boss was. Furthermore, Feng Bujiwe's flying dragon fist was executed cleanly and efficiently. Fu Ling was large and stuck in the swamp, so naturally, she could not evade the attack. Therefore, she took the hit squarely, and she screamed in pain. A scary wail mixed with a horrible stench escaped from Fu Ling's mouth and spread through the battle barrier. After Feng Bujiwe's attack landed, he immediately retreated. He clung to the invisible barrier and bounced back to create some distance between him and the boss. However, that scary wail still entered Feng Bujiwe's ears. In an extremely short amount of time, this sound destroyed his sense of balance and distance. It caused his body to stagger in midair and almost fall to the ground. TSK, after being injured, she used this kind of unavoidable attack. As Brother Jew stabilized himself, he analyzed the meaning of the boss's various reactions in the game. Let's not talk about that. His eyes moved quickly to the point where he was hit. My attack, did it really work? His suspicions were reasonable, because in just a few seconds, the area on Fu Ling's back that had been shattered had been covered by a dark brown substance. It looked exactly the same as before, as if it was completely unharmed. Physical attacks are ineffective, or does she have a super strong, self-healing ability? Feng Bujiwe's mind raced, and his body did not stop moving. Before Fu Ling's next attack arrived, he had to return to a higher area as soon as possible to gain more space. You despicable, filthy ant. When I catch you, I will drown you in the deepest part of this swamp. After the scream, Fu Ling continued to curse. Let's try a pure sorcery attack. Feng Bujiwe ignored Fu Ling's cries and jumped to the highest point of the barrier. He first took out the Bell of Jin Gang and activated its fourth effect, double the effect of your next sorcery mastery, under reasonable conditions. Then he placed his hands in front of his eyes and aimed downwards. The gloves are indeed stained with a lot of *T. Brother Jew prepared for the tri-beam as he mumbled, "This boss is big enough. It should be able to absorb 100% of the damage from the tri-beam." As he said this, his eyes turned cold. The spirit energy around him suddenly increased, and his ultimate skill was like an arrow on a bow. Optimistically speaking, at the very least, she will be heavily injured, Feng Bujiwe said as he adjusted the trajectory of the tri-beam to the best angle and called out the name of the skill in a very Chinibu manner. "Eat my tri-beam." Chapter 551. There was an explosion and spiritual energy rushed out. Thinking back, the anomaly Y2 glow was only within the range of this tri-beam, It was already at the brink of death. But now, the large Fu Ling swallowed all the damage from the tri-beam, and there was no waste. If the special effect of the Bell of Jin Gang was included, it would be 200% damage. A normal scenario boss would have a hard time surviving this skill. But Feng Bujue was currently in a very difficult team survival scenario, and Fu Ling was a hidden boss. In terms of strength, she was far stronger than a normal character. Even compared to Sam Montier, she was not that much weaker. Thus, a strange scene occurred. After the explosion, Fu Ling's gigantic body, which was made of filth, shattered and dissipated, but she was not killed. Inside her body, a translucent human figure that was no different from a normal person appeared. Feng Bujue looked closer. At that moment, Fu Ling looked like a human female. She wore a dress, and her body was slender. Her waist-length hair fell down her back. The only difference was there was no flesh in the middle of Fu Ling's face, the part that covered her nose and cheeks. She looked like a skeleton. However, above her eyes and below her lips, there was flesh and blood. Ah, as expected, Brother Ju said. Based on the aesthetics of the kingdom of the dead, the most beautiful thing has to be exposed to the bone. There was an obvious change in Fu Ling's tone. You broke the curse seal? When she said the last few words, she was practically in a state where she was about to cry tears of joy. Ha! Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! She laughed out loud, but a few seconds later, her joy turned to sorrow, and she cried a few times. A few seconds later, she laughed again, and then cried again. Feng Bujue stood on the high ground and watched silently. He did not say anything and did not continue to attack. From his perspective, this was normal. If a person was sealed inside a body made from feces for a long time, when she was released, there was an 80% chance that she would react this way. Honestly, even if this boss lost her mind due to joy, Brother Ju would not be surprised. I'm finally free. Fu Ling looked up at the sky, opened her arms, and screamed loudly. Although she was currently bathing in a foul stench, her demeanor was as carefree as if she was in heaven. Hey, is this a parody of the ending of the Shawshank Redemption? Feng Bujue laughed drily and slowly descended from the sky. He knew that he was lucky this time. Even though the tri-beam did not kill the boss, it ended the battle in a different way. Sure enough, not long after, the surrounding barrier disappeared with a strange Wong sound. If you're done celebrating, why don't you answer a few of my questions? Feng Bujue returned to the dirt path and asked Fu Ling. Fu Ling looked at Brother Ju and replied, of course. Her voice did not change much. She still sounded like an old witch. After all, you did me a big favor. What do you want to know? Traveler from another world. How do I leave Devil's Chomp Island? Feng Bujue asked the most important question directly. At the same time, in the center of Devil's Chomp Island, the crystal maze. The space here was twisted and grotesque. Giant crystal pillars intersected with each other, and extremely aggressive beasts hid among them. In the center of this maze, there was a giant crystal cage. This cage looked like a flat and round rattan ball. It was made of crystal and completely hollow. Inside the cage, a black shadow was sitting on the ground, deep in thought. This sure is ironic. Suddenly, a low, hoarse voice came from outside the cage. Sam Montier, who was inside the cage, did not move. He replied without raising his head, "Humph, it's you." He paused and called out the other person's name. Billy. The person who was talking to him outside the cage was none other than the wooden puppet Billy. Once upon a time, you were outside the cage, and I was inside the cage. Billy continued, but now, you become a prisoner, and I'm outside the cage. Did you come to me just to tell me this? Sam Montier asked. And, with your power, how did you get to Devil's Maw Island? He finally raised his head when he said this. The moonlight passed through the gaps in the crystal cage and scattered mottled light into the cage, illuminating the prisoner in the cage. Sam Montier's appearance was quite scary. He was about 2 meters tall, and his body was muscular. His limbs were long and narrow. His face was ferocious, and his skin was dark red. He had a pair of yellow eyes that were like those of a beast, and they shone brightly in the dark. There was a pair of goat horns on his forehead and a pair of bat wings on his back. The wings were about 3 meters long, and the claws on his fingertips and the fangs in his mouth were as sharp as knives. His legs were very thick, and his feet were a pair of giant hooves. His crotch and thighs were covered with a mane that was as hard as steel, and he had a lion's tail behind him. Many things have changed, Sam Montier. Billy pedaled his little 3-wheeled motorcycle and circled around the crystal cage as he continued. Many things have happened during the years you were imprisoned. Are you trying to say that you now have the power to enter and leave Devil's Chomp Island freely? Sam Montier scoffed. Oomph, that's ridiculous. Do you not believe me, or do you not want to believe me? Billy laughed in his hoarse voice. What if I told you that not only me, even Ravid and Aldan have power that is no weaker than yours? How would you feel? Just the two of you? Sam Montier hissed through gritted teeth. Hard to accept, is it? Billy sneered. I understand. As the last descendant of the strongest satyr in the world, you have your own pride and perseverance. He stopped in front of the cage and said, in the past, the three of us couldn't defeat you even if we worked together. But now, each of us is stronger than you. Naturally, you will not be happy. Little puppet, don't pretend that you understand me. Sam Montier's eyes glinted with anger. I don't even understand myself. You are too close to the situation. Billy continued. From the perspective of those gods who follow order, your behavior is indeed erratic. But I can understand you completely. He paused for a second before continuing. No matter how outstanding you are among your kind, at the end of the day, you are still a satyr. The blood of chaos flows in your body, and that is an irresistible instinct. Even though you have become the minister of time, a servant loyal to order, you are unable to shake off those things that you were born with. Therefore, you betrayed the master of time, escaped from that prison, and released the three of us prisoners. So, you still remember. Sam Montier said, don't you think this is a good chance to repay me? Repay? Ha ha ha. Billy laughed 3 times. I am not a 3-year-old child. Save it. His tone turned serious. You released us to distract the master of time and buy time for your permanent escape plan. Unfortunately, your plan was ruined because of an unexpected and tiny oversight. You have underestimated those travelers from another world, or rather, you have underestimated the power of that Fong Bujua. Therefore, at the last moment, you were captured by the Master of Time. And the first thing you did after you were captured was to betray our location in exchange for your own life. You have indeed seen through some of my thoughts and actions, Sam Montier said coldly. But that does not mean that you understand me. Perhaps. Billy waited for a few seconds before saying, all right, let's get down to business. I am here to make a deal with you. What? Sam Montier's expression shifted, and shock colored his face. What's wrong? Is it that strange? Billy asked. On this Devil's Island, a deal is the only trustworthy principle, isn't it? Just like the deal between you and Rainsford, Hunter's Island. As long as both parties come to an agreement, we can both get what we want. You sure know a lot of things, Sam Montier said darkly. Yes, I did make a deal with him. Ford is an insignificant human being. I only gave him a small amount of power and showed him the way to leave the island, and he was willing to help me take revenge on Fong Bujua. He paused, and his yellowish eyes stared at Billy's face. But what do you want from me? At least, I believe, other than pain, I have nothing left. Chapter 552. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of Jeppo slicing through the air echoed, and a shadow leaped through the swamp. Since he had spent too much time communicating with Fu Ling, Fong Bujua had to pick up his speed. Using his memory, he returned to the edge of the taunting forest and successfully found the footprints left behind by Uncle Worthless and the rest. Then, he followed the footprints and came to the edge of the swamp. At that moment, there were still 22 minutes until the time limit for the main mission. Hey, what is this? When Fong Bujua reached the edge of the swamp, he saw something weird on the stone path before him. 4 black human-shaped stains. No way. Even though he could not see them clearly from afar, he had a bad feeling. With a nervous heart, Brother Jew followed the muddy path onto the stone path. He walked quickly to the stains and lowered his head to take a closer look. At this distance, he could finally confirm that these 4 stains were Uncle Worthless, Flying Horse, Hong Hu, and Atobi. What kind of cosplay is this? Feng Bujua narrowed his eyes, smearing their whole body with ink and then lying on the ground as a souvenir. He immediately denied that speculation. That's not right. These 4 stains are like silhouettes. The edges are very smooth, and there is not a single extra black spot around them. They are not 2D characters from cartoons. Even if they were soaked in liquid, they would not be able to leave such a stain on the ground. With that in mind, Brother Jew squatted down and prepared to reach out to touch the stain to see what it was. But at that moment, a gust of wind blew past, and a black shadow shot at him from the side. Feng Bujua reacted quickly. With a tap of his foot, he leaped up the slope, which was the direction of the swamp, to create some distance from the unknown threat. In that split second, Death Poker had already appeared in his hands, and he was ready to use it. "Ha! You're not bad yourself," a shrill voice said. Brother Jew turned around and locked his eyes on the enemy. It was a black, illusory, and large palm. "Oh, also not bad, is it?" Feng Bujua said in a rather calm tone. He looked like he was not surprised at all. "In other words, you have already met a few people who are quite good at fighting." Brother Jew's choice of words was flawless. He did not mention who those guys were, nor did he mention how they were related to him. He was purely making a reasonable inference based on the content of that short sentence from the other party's mouth, and then using the other party's words in turn. There on the ground, the black hand used its index finger to point at the stains on the ground. Then, laughter came from the palm of its hand. "Hee hee, you will be like them soon. Hee hee, I can even let you choose a good posture. TSK, are they all wiped out?" Feng Bujua glanced at the 4 figures on the ground and muttered, "But, from the game menu, they are all still alive. There should be a way to restore them. What's wrong? Are you so scared that you don't dare to speak?" The black hand continued aggressively. "You are the hand of rubbing, right?" When Feng Bujua asked this question, his expression turned cold. This meant that he was getting serious. "Huh, traveler from another world. You know me?" The hand of rubbing laughed. Of course, Feng Bujua did not know this guy. However, Brother Jew had heard a lot of information from Fu Ling, so he knew that there were 4 guards on Devil Chomp Island. They were the hand, eye, heart, and soul. The hand was called the hand of rubbing. I know a thing or two. Feng Bujua was good at bluffing. When he heard that he had guessed correctly, he laughed coldly and said, "I also know that the strength of your guards is actually very average, but you all have a special ability." He pointed at the ground. "These 4, they fell for your little trick, right? That's why they're on the ground, right?" Brother Jew's words were also a test. He pretended to know the other party very well, and showed an arrogant and disdainful attitude in order to provoke the other party. In reality, he did not know what the abilities of the 4 guards were. It was not that Fu Ling did not want to tell Brother Jew, but that even she did not know. "Little trick?" The hand of rubbing raised its sharp voice. You idiot, you actually dare to say that?" When it said this, it turned its back, palm, and raised its middle finger at Brother Jew. "I will let you experience my little trick." "Okay, I was thinking the same thing," Feng Bujua replied. At this moment, Brother Jew's stamina and spiritual energy were almost depleted. After using the Southern Dipper Flying Dragon Fist, Tri-Beam, and a large amount of Jeppo, his body was obviously tired. If they were to fight normally, his chances of winning might not even be 50%. Moreover, Uncle Worthless and the others were not weak in direct combat, and they had the advantage in numbers. So how could they be defeated so easily? It was obvious that if they wanted to defeat this guard, normal methods would not work. "You want to play dirty?" Brother Jew smirked and looked at the other party with a malicious gaze. "I will accompany you to the end. I will make you unable to be arrogant." The hand of rubbing shouted and flipped its palm. In the next second, the space around them froze, and a fog-like shadow surrounded them, forming a cylindrical area. "Hee hee, welcome to the rock, paper, scissors area." The hand of rubbing let out a sinister laugh. Feng Bujua pulled a long face and said weakly, "So, it's this kind of ability?" He put on a look of disgust and contempt and squinted at the other party. "I thought you would use some more technical tricks, such as a steel pole dance or something. What is that?" The hand of rubbing's aura immediately dissipated, and its tone was full of pain. "A kind of dance." Feng Bujue shrugged. "I have heard of pole dancing." The hand of rubbing said, "No, no, that is for people with bodies." Feng Bujue said, "As for you, you need to find a pole and a few buckets of lubricant. What kind of dance is that? What kind of technique is that? You better stop before you go too far." The hand of rubbing roared. "As a right hand, your awareness is really childish to the point of being ridiculous." Feng Bujue raised his right hand with a serious face, and his hand was like a flame. "Umph, you're like a person who is knee-deep in water but claims that you have seen the ocean. You are the real fool." He slowly changed his hand gesture and raised his middle finger at the hand of rubbing. "In front of the hand of God, you don't even have the right to make dirty gestures. In a sense, you are really a god." The hand of rubbing could not help but ridicule. "With a hot-blooded, domineering, and arrogant attitude, you are able to carry out such wretched words and actions as if nothing happened. I will leave the whining of a stray dog for after the failure." Feng Bujue swung his arm. "Let's fight. Isn't it just rock, paper, scissors?" Seeing that the other party had stopped talking nonsense, the hand of rubbing coldly snorted and brought the topic back to the main topic. Don't be anxious. This is obviously not an ordinary rock, paper, scissors game. For the sake of fairness, before we start, I will explain the rules." "Oh, if the opponent does not know the rules, then the ability will not be able to fully take effect," Feng Bujue directly replied. "Shut up." The hand of rubbing was instantly exposed and was somewhat angry. "If you don't want to listen, then let's just waste time like this. There is absolutely no way to escape from this realm." All right, go ahead." Feng Bujue spread out his hands and pretended to shake his head. "First, I will explain the rules regarding the winner and loser." The hand of rubbing continued. "Rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, and Booker beats rock. If both parties use the same thing, then it will be considered draw." As he spoke, he changed his hand gestures and made rock, scissors, and paper. If one party wins 3 times, then it will be considered the winner. There is no time limit between each round. If you are willing, you can even have a week between rounds. As long as you're not afraid of starving to death in the rock, paper, scissors game. Yes, there's more." Feng Bujue nodded in response. "If I win," the hand of rubbing said, "I will slap you into the ground." He paused for a moment. "Just like what I did to them?" "Sorry to interrupt." Feng Bujue interrupted. "May I ask, did the 4 of them compete with you one by one?" "Yes," the hand of rubbing replied. "But, from the beginning, I trapped all 4 of them in the rock, paper, scissors game to prevent them from abandoning their companions and running away. In other words, when you were competing with the first person, the other 3 were watching from the side." Feng Bujue said again. "Yes," the other party replied. "Then you defeated the first person, slapped him into the ground, and the second person came to compete with you, and so on." Feng Bujue continued. "You consecutively defeated the 4 of them." That's right." The hand of rubbing replied proudly. "How is it? Are you scared?" Brother Ju did not answer this question, but calmly said, "I understand. Please continue with the rules." The copied hand suddenly felt bored. It clenched its fist and continued. "If you win, although we all know that it's impossible, but if that kind of thing really happens, then I'll let you pass." "Just to let me pass alone?" Feng Bujue said. He seemed to already know something, and confidently said, "Then what if I win against you again? In other words, I will get 3 wins again." The hand of rubbing laughed slyly. "Those 4 people are really your companions, right?" Feng Bujue remained silent. The hand of rubbing did not need his confirmation. It pointed at the figures on the ground and laughed. "From the second time onwards, for every 3 rounds you win against me, I will release 1 person from the ground and give them the right to pass." Its voice deepened, "But you have to think clearly excluding the number of rounds that are tied for every 5 rounds if you lose 3 rounds. Chapter 553. The darkness before Hong Hu retreated, and his sense of hearing and touch returned almost at the same time. He opened his eyes and realized that he was lying on the ground. The next second, he suddenly turned over and sat up. Then, what entered his eyes was a large black hand and a familiar figure. Do you still remember what happened? Feng Bujue, who was not far away, turned his head to look at Hong Hu. The latter frowned, thought about it, and replied, He turned his gaze to the hand of rubbing. Slapped into the ground, as Ambitionist spoke, he instinctively turned his head and looked at the ground. By then, his rubbing had disappeared, but Uncle Worthless, Flying Pegasus, and Atobi's shadows were still imprinted on the stone pavement. What happened? Hong Hu turned to Feng Bujue and asked, Did you save me? Of course, who else could it be? Feng Bujue shrugged and replied easily. How much longer until the time limit? Hong Hu asked quickly. His first reaction was not to thank Brother Ju, but to make use of the time to ask some practical questions to decide what to do next. Of course, Feng Bujue had no problem with that. In fact, he agreed with that approach. If he was in Brother Ju's shoes, he would have done the same. Don't worry, there are still 15 minutes. Feng Bujue replied. As he spoke, he used his thumb to point behind him. Based on my knowledge, this place is very close to the temple. We'll be there after climbing over that small hill about 300 meters away. He paused and used his index finger to point at the hand of rubbing. I'll be able to deal with this thing in 10 minutes and save Brother Ma and the rest. So, we'll have about 5 minutes to get there. That shouldn't be a problem. Humph, you won against me twice by sheer luck, and now you're getting carried away? Hearing Brother Ju's words, the hand of rubbing became more and more annoyed. I will not lose to you again. Why does this sound so familiar? Feng Bujue replied in a sarcastic tone. Oh, by the way, you said almost the same thing a few minutes ago. The only difference is that once is now twice. Cut the crap. Continue. The storing hand shouted. All right, let's do it. Feng Bujue replied. He raised his hand and prepared to punch. At this moment, Hong Hu was both surprised and bewildered in his heart as he thought to himself, What's going on? He actually defeated this fellow twice? How did you do it? It was understandable that he would feel puzzled. Not long ago, Hong Hu and the other 3 party members had encountered the hand of stored skills. Naturally, they had also played the same game of rock, paper, scissors, but they had all lost. Furthermore, the 4 of them took turns to go on stage and were defeated one by one. In other words, the person at the end of the line had at least 3 rounds, at least 9 rounds of experience, but he still could not defeat the hand of stored skills. By the way, Hong Hu was the one at the end of the line, because the other 3 thought that even if they all lost, it would not be a big deal. Anyway, Hong Hu would definitely be able to understand some rules and tricks from their victories and defeats, and then defeat this mini-boss. Unfortunately, Hong Hu did not understand anything, which led to the current development. Come on, rock, scissors, paper. Just as Hong Hu was thinking, Brother Ju and the hand of stored skills had already started a new round. Brother Ju smirked. I won again. He licked his lips. I won 7 rounds in a row. Damn it, you bastard. Although the hand of stored skills did not have a mouth, its voice sounded like it was gnashing its teeth. What's going on? Is it pure luck? Or tactics? Ambitionist looked at the situation before him nervously, and he thought to himself, but for rock, paper, scissors, there is usually no strategy, right? Even though I have heard of the saying that the newbie will throw out the rock first, it is useless in a battle that will last for many rounds. Moreover, the opponent is not even human. Even if I wanted to judge from the subtle gestures, eyes, or small movements, I would not be able to do anything. You are too naive. Feng Bujue suddenly turned his head and said to Hong Hu. Hong Hu was stunned. Looking at your expression, I know that you are thinking, how did I win so many rounds in a row? Feng Bujue continued. Of course it is not luck. If it was luck, I would have been like all of you, lying on the ground. Then, this is? Hong Hu was puzzled. I just did the same thing as it. Feng Bujue glanced at the hand of stored skills. I predicted what the opponent would throw out in advance, and then made the winning hand gesture. What? Hong, who was shocked. Ha! That's why I said you were naive. Feng Bujue laughed dryly and said, You really thought it would play normal rock, paper, scissors with you? Hong, who turned his head and stared at the hand of stored skills. So you have some kind of instant prediction ability? Too despicable. Shut up. The hand of stored skills replied, I never said that I did not have this ability, and I never said that I was not allowed to use it. Hee. Well said. Feng Bujue laughed sinisterly. Come, let's continue. Just as he finished speaking, he, in the hand of stored skills, played another round of guessing, and Brother Ju won again. Ugh. Damn it. The hand of stored skills cursed and complained. Again. Feng Bujue said again. In the blink of an eye, it was another round, and Brother Ju won again. Thus, Uncle Worthless recovered from the stored skills. Even though the hand of stored skills was extremely angry, it still followed Brother Ju's request and played round after round of rock, paper, scissors. According to the agreement, every time it lost a round, 3 rounds, it would release one player from the stored skills. Not long after, the 4 players who were sealed on the ground were all restored to their original state. After Hong Hu's explanation, the other 3 players roughly understood the situation. You win. The hand of stored skills saw that it had lost all of its bargaining chips and fiercely said, Today, I admit defeat. Let's end the game. Take your companions and scram. I refuse. Feng Bujue said straightforwardly. What did you say? The hand of stored skills and the other 4 players all had the same reaction. Come, let's continue. Feng Bujue said and raised his hand again. Wait. The hand of stored skills' sharp voice began to tremble. Your companions have already recovered. You still want to? You can continue, right? Feng Bujue interrupted. Yes. The hand of stored skills was obviously scared, and it stuttered as it replied. Then, if I win this round, what will happen? Feng Bujue asked aggressively. Don't go overboard. The hand of stored skills roared. He. Actually, you don't have to answer. I already guessed it. Feng Bujue laughed wickedly. You will be pushed to the ground, right? The hand of stored skills couldn't deny it, and could only angrily groan. As expected, Feng Bujue grinned wickedly. Come on. Guess. Fist. A rather strange scene occurred. Although the hand of stored skills was unwilling, it still played another round of rock, paper, scissors with Brother Ju. It was as if Brother Ju was the master of this rock, paper, scissors realm. 2 seconds later, both sides made their moves, and the result was revealed. Feng Bujue won again. No, don't be like this. The hand of stored skills nervously said, Quickly stop. Again. Feng Bujue shouted, and another round of victory followed. He won again. No, I beg you. The hand of stored skills finally began to beg. Let's talk about a deal. Whatever you want, just say it, as long as it is within my power. Feng Bujue smiled indifferently. At this moment, I only want one thing. He looked directly at the hand of stored skills. But I don't need anyone to give me that thing. I can just take it myself, he said, and raised his hand again. The hand of stored skills screamed in fear, but it still guessed the fist, the last fist. When the failure arrived, the hand of stored skills flipped its palm, and it fell toward the ground. It was suddenly embedded in the ground and gradually flattened, like a 3D model that was forcibly compressed into a 2D piece of paper. You madman. Before the hand of stored skills completely sank into the ground, it left behind a groan. No matter what you say, I still got what I wanted. Feng Bujue lowered his eyes to look at the shadow of the giant hand on the ground and said mockingly, Fun. 2 seconds later, the space around the players instantly expanded. It felt like a large amount of solidified matter had suddenly turned into gas, but the gas was formless. Very good. The barrier has disappeared. Feng Bujue said, It's about as good as I expected. We still have 5 minutes to reach the Temple of Faith. As he said that, he turned around. Let me lead the way. I know the general direction. Air. About that, Atobi could not help but interject. Aren't you going to explain what happened earlier? The other three looked at Brother Jew like they were looking at a monster. They did not dare get close to him. Initially, they were only impressed by Fong Bujua's power, but later, especially in the last 2 minutes, Fong Bujua's words and actions really raised their terror points. They could not help but have the impression that Fong Bujua was the real villain, and the hand of stored skills was the victim. Of course, I will explain. Brother Jew drawled. That was the truth. He did like to show off. But we have less than 5 minutes left to complete the main quest. How about we wait until we reach the Temple of Faith first? You're right. Honghu quickly calmed down and added, in any case, let's move on. Honghu's response eased the atmosphere. After the group heard that, they hesitated for half a second before following behind Fong Bujua and moving forward quickly. Chapter 554. The five shadows ran up the stone path. In less than a minute, they had covered a distance of 300 meters and reached the top of the small hill. Standing here and looking ahead, one could see a gray wasteland. Above the wasteland stood a group of spires. The spires were densely packed together and arranged neatly, like a bundle of bamboo shoots tied together. That pile is the roof of the Temple of Faith. Fong Bujua explained. 90% of this building is buried underground, so we have to find an entrance to get in as soon as possible. As he said that, he pointed ahead. If we really can't find it, we'll use brute force to break open the gap. Okay, there's no time to lose. Let's do it, Honghu said. When we get there, we'll split up. Uncle Worthless agreed. The five exchanged a few more words before they continued to move forward. This time, they ran down the hill, and they moved even faster. They covered several hundred meters in the blink of an eye. However, when they reached the pile of spires, they realized the entrance was very easy to find. On each of the spires, there was a movable door, skylight, and once they got close enough, they could see its outline. Do we pick one? Atobi looked at his teammates with an inquiring gaze. At this point, there is no time to choose one by one. Fong Bujua said as he walked to the tip of the spire that was closest to him. He pulled open the door on top of it. I will go down first. If there is any trap, I can use my power to avoid it. Of course, Brother Jew would not go down just like that. When he said that, he picked up a random rock and tossed it into the entrance. Pata! The sound of the rock hitting the ground echoed back. It sounded like the space inside was not that deep. Oh, it doesn't look like it's designed to go all the way down, Fong Bujua said as he took out the compound anti-gravity gun. He turned on the light expertly and shone it into the door. At this time, his four teammates also gathered around him and peered inside. Using the light from the gun, the five saw the walls and floor inside the building. What is this? Attic? Unconstrained Sky asked. Who knows? Honghu said. Anyway, it's a good thing for us. At least we don't have to worry about falling to our deaths. While they were talking, Fong Bujua took half a step forward. He propped himself up with one hand and leaped in the mouth. 2 seconds later, Brother Jew landed on the ground and stood firmly inside the temple. At the same time, the system announcement appeared in his ears. Current quest completed. At this moment, Fong Bujua's first reaction was not to check the quest panel, but to use the light to scan the surroundings for traps and monsters. After confirming that there was no danger around, he immediately raised his head and shouted, "Get down!" As soon as he shouted, the four people above heard him and moved. They jumped into the entrance one after another and landed one after another. In the end, the five of them safely touched the ground and heard the system notifications. At this moment, there were only 40 seconds left until the end of the quest. Phew! If not for the shortcut, we would have been wiped out during the first main quest, right? Atobi looked at the quest that had been ticked off in the game menu and sighed. That might not be the case, Uncle Worthless said. If we had taken a longer route, perhaps we wouldn't have run into that hand of holding. Oh, by the way, Atobi's expression shifted as he turned to Fong Bujua. Master Fong, can you explain now the battle between you and the hand of holding? Actually, it was quite simple. When Fong Bujua was replying, He used the searchlight on the catapult to scan the area. He was not wasting time at all. Stop keeping us in suspense, Hong Hu said. The desire to show off on your face has already betrayed you. Ha! Fine, fine, Feng Bujue replied with a smile. But I'd better start from the beginning. In the next few minutes, Brother Ju told the story of how he ventured into the swamp alone, how he fought against Fu Ling, how he saved the beauty, and how he got information out of anger. Needless to say, there was a lot of embellishment. In any case, after that description, it was finally the part where he played the rock-paper-scissors game with the hand of holding. After chatting with that dumb beep for a few sentences, I saw through it. Feng Bujue used a smug tone and strong language to start his explanation. First, the rock-paper-scissors game itself is very suspicious. This is not Chinese Go, where the game is won through skill, and it is not military chess, where luck and skill are equally important. This is a F***king rock-paper-scissors game. The name itself has the word guess in it. Luck is 70% of the game, right? He turned around and paced a few steps. The other party proposed to play rock-paper-scissors in a 1-versus-4 situation. This behavior itself is like saying I have a special rock-paper-scissors skill. Sigh, I've thought of that as well. Hong Hu sighed. Unfortunately, at the time, I thought it would rely on the rules or tactics, but who would have thought it would rely on some kind of hidden power? Initially, that was my thought as well, but for the sake of insurance, I asked the hand of holding a question, Feng Bujue said. I asked it, did the 4 of them challenge you one by one? He smiled, and it proudly admitted. From that moment on, I was sure that the hand of rubbing must have used some kind of ability to cheat. Huh? When Atobi heard this, his mind was having a hard time catching up. Hey, isn't the gap between the question and the conclusion a bit too big? I can understand what he means, Uncle Woody said. Brother Feng's analysis should be like this. Since the 4 of us challenge each other one by one, there should be an order of appearance. If I'm not mistaken, Hong Hu, who is good at analysis, should be arranged to be the last to fight. And with Hong Hu's intelligence, after watching 3 matches, there is no reason he couldn't see through the hand of holding's trick, unless... Hong Hu finished the sentence. Unless the opponent didn't rely on the rules or tactics to win. Atobi understood then. So, the conclusion is that the hand of holding has some kind of power that can guarantee victory in rock-paper-scissors. Ha ha ha! Feng Bujue clapped his hands. Very good, as they say, 3 heads are better than 1 zhuge liang. You sure are shameless, Hong Hu replied. Yes, I can't compare to the Prime Minister's moral character. Feng Bujue nodded seriously. In other words, you can compete in terms of intelligence? Atobi's lips twitched. Brother Ju ignored the sarcasm and brought the topic back on track. In other words, since we've confirmed that the hand of holding is using its power to play rock-paper-scissors, things are much easier. Because I also have a power that allows me to predict the opponent's movement. What Feng Bujue was talking about was, of course, his zero-time difference calculation. Actually, what I'm really concerned about is not the rock-paper-scissors itself, but the setting of the rock-paper-scissors domain, Feng Bujue said. You've all noticed it, right? In that domain, our fighting power is greatly suppressed, and we're practically no different from normal people. Yes, Flying Cloud added. Flying Pegasus continued. Otherwise, I would have used Meteor Punch to get rid of that big hand. What's the point of guessing Fist? Yes, that domain is the scariest part. Feng Bujue said. This Devil's Island is filled with experts. As guards, naturally, they have the power to suppress the prisoners. Obviously, the hand of holding's own power is far from enough. If I'm not mistaken, the 4 guards, including the hand of holding, don't use their own power but some kind of special power that has been given. He paused, and his eyes shifted. After the previous test, I've confirmed this hypothesis. Test? What test? Atobi asked. Feng Bujue replied matter-of-factly. It's the last match between me and the hand of holding. When he said that, Hong Hu, who stood next to him, sucked in a cold breath. Only those who follow Brother Ju's thought process would understand how scary this man was. 10 minutes ago, when everyone thought that Feng Bujue's ruthlessness was due to his stupidity, he knew very well that it was nothing more than a crazy show. Behind this show, it was still a rational decision and rational action. From the result, the absolute rule of the rock, paper, scissors domain is something that the hand of holding is unable to resist. Feng Bujue continued. This proves that the domain is not its own power. Oh, no wonder the hand of holding's final action was so weird, Atobi added. So, it knew that it was going to lose, but it was powerless to stop the game, and that was why it acted that way. Yes, you're right, Feng Buju added. Based on my observation, there are 4 absolute rules in the rock, paper, scissors domain. He raised his right hand and extended 4 fingers. 1. Before the winner is decided, no one is allowed to leave the domain. 2. Only when the winner of the previous round agrees to stop the match will the domain be removed. 3. The challenged, in other words, us, will decide when the next round will start. 4. The punishment and reward for the winner and loser can be discussed beforehand, and the default punishment is to be rolled to the ground and turned into a silhouette. At this point, Brother Ju put down his hand. The above 4 rules are relatively fair and are absolute rules that even the hand of holding can't defy. Of course, as the initiator of the rock, paper, scissors domain does have some special rules that are beneficial to it. For example, after entering the domain, the challenged combat ability will be limited, and they will be forced to participate in the game. I still don't get it, Imaginative Horse suddenly interjected. After all this, how did you win? He widened his eyes. He can predict what you will do, and you can predict what he will do. Doesn't that make the conditions the same? That's right, Atobi agreed. That's the real problem, isn't it? Huh? Feng Bujue replied weakly. What? That's the simplest part. He titled his head to the side. After my test, the hand of holding's power is to read the thoughts in your mind at the moment before you throw the punch. He scoffed. Humph. Theoretically speaking, there are at least 3 ways to win, and in the previous game, I used 2 of them. You've got to be kidding me. Uncle Worthless removed his sunglasses and said with shock. Let's talk about the method with the lowest success rate first. Feng Bujue continued slowly. That is to stop thinking about anything at the moment of the rock, paper, scissors game. Keep your mind blank and throw out a hand gesture instinctively. TSK. And I thought you were going to say something else. Does that count? Atobi replied. Actually, that is very difficult. Feng Bujue said. If you don't believe me, you can try. A normal person will throw out a hand gesture that looks like a chicken's claw, and then will be counted as paper. Using this method, it is indeed possible to seal the power of the hand of holding. Honghu added. But if you throw out a hand gesture instinctively, it is almost impossible to throw out a scissors. That is an obvious weakness. That's right. At most, after 2 rounds, the opponent will see through this loophole, and they will continue to use paper to deal with it, Feng Bujue said. Furthermore, even the first 2 rounds are purely based on luck. So, I didn't use this method. Brother Ju paused for a few seconds. He licked his lips and continued. Then, let's talk about the second method. There is not much to say about this. In other words, I will use my power to fight against the opponent's power. He scratched his head. Regarding my power, I will not explain it in detail. You only need to know that my method is many times better than the hand of holding. He was telling the truth. The hand of holding's power could only allow him to see the thoughts that flashed through the opponent's mind before the game started. Zero-time difference calculation, on the other hand, could calculate everything. Sigh. I have to say its power is too slow, and its reaction is too slow. Its movement is so slow that it is as if it is still. Feng Bujue sighed. So, in the first few rounds, I relied on my own power to win against the hand of copied hands, and in the process, I managed to analyze the enemy's power. All right, stop being so smug, Honghu said. What about the third method? It has nothing to do with your power, right? Of course, this is not a solo scenario. Why would the system design a guard that only I can deal with? Feng Bujue added with a smile. There is indeed another method that has nothing to do with any power. Anyone can use it to win against the hand of holding, and that is, the four who were listening all revealed curious expressions. Cognitive distortion. Feng Bujue uttered a strange term. What the hell is this? His face was full of I don't understand, but it's awesome. Just like this. Feng Bujue said as he raised his fist. Rock. When he said that, he waved his hand, but his hand was in the shape of scissors. Air. Atobi looked at it for 2 seconds. Is that really going to work? Isn't that just lying to yourself? If you lie to yourself, you will fail, because your mind will still be filled with scissors. Feng Bujue said, but cognitive distortion is different. My mind is filled with rock, but my hands are scissors. This method requires one to overturn the concept that is deeply ingrained in one's mind in a short amount of time. Instead of calling it lying, it is more like believing. It is indeed a bit complicated to explain, but if you are familiar with it, you can do this. He raised his hand again. Rock, scissors, paper, rock, scissors, paper. He chanted at high speed, and his hands moved, but the gestures he made were different from the ones he chanted out. When he chanted rock, his hands were scissors. When he chanted scissors, they were paper. When he chanted paper, they were rock. How can this be used by anyone? Atobi complained, but you're the only one who can do this, right? No, you can do it as well, but you need time. Feng Bujue shrugged. Actually, the system has given us this time. Don't forget, the interval between each round is decided by the player. He paused for a moment, then continued. Taking a step back, even if you're not familiar with it, it doesn't matter because the basic behavior of the copied hand will not change. As long as you think before you punch, it will definitely make a corresponding hand gesture to suppress you. So, as long as you control the timing and try not to make any mistakes, you will win. At this point, Feng Bujue had pretty much finished his explanation. The system notification seemed to be waiting for them to finish chatting, and only then did it ring. Main quest has been updated. In the quest tab, the new main quest had appeared. Reach the altar at the bottom of the Temple of Faith within 3 hours. Players who do not arrive within the time limit will be killed. Chapter 555. When the mission announcement came, Feng Bujue put down the gun in his hand and fired another wild ball punch at an empty spot. Again, Atobi asked, of course, the skill has a cooldown of 1 hour. Feng Bujue replied, actually, I wanted to fire it earlier, but it was only for a few minutes, so there's no need to be so careful, so I decided to explain it to you first. By the way, what is the use of this skill? Atobi asked. The cooldown is 1 hour, but it doesn't look that powerful. Humph. How did you know this is an offensive skill? Feng Bujue purposely asked. Then this skill is, Atobi guessed, a skill that permanently increases one's attribute. He said half-jokingly, could it be that every time you do that, it will slightly increase one of your hidden attributes? Oh, you managed to see through that. Not bad. Feng Bujue lied without batting an eyelid. Fine, then I'll tell you. Actually, every time I use this skill, something on my body will grow a little longer. If that something you're talking about is moral integrity, then that's great. Atobi looked at his brother Ju with condescension. That's enough. If you want to chat, wait until the quest is over. Ambitionist interrupted the two who were bickering and reminded them. Based on the completion of the last quest, the difficulty of this one will definitely not be low. There won't be much time left for us. Of course, this is a nightmare difficulty team dungeon. Feng Bujue turned around to answer. Every step we take is like walking on a tightrope. Our lives are hanging by a thread. If you know, then help us find the way. Time waits for no one. Uncle Worthless took out a flashlight and started to search for the path to the next floor. There's no need. Feng Bujue picked up the catapult on the ground and aimed the searchlight at a corner of the space. I found it when I was talking to you. Hearing this, everyone looked in the direction he was pointing and saw the entrance to the next floor, another movable door. Let me briefly explain the surrounding environment. The four walls and floor of the room that the players were in were made of gray stone bricks. The area was about 80 square meters. Although the ceiling of the stone room was conical, there were no pillars or beams to support the room. In the area illuminated by Feng Bujue's light, There was a movable door embedded in the ground, 1 meter long and 1 meter wide, a small metal door that could be opened with a push and would automatically return to normal after a few seconds of stopping. Its appearance was no different from the one at the entrance above, except that it was on the ground. "Wow, Brother Fong, you're quite efficient," Uncle Worthless said. "You flatter me," Fong Bujue replied lightly. "By the way, did you guys notice something?" At this moment, Heavenly Steed Soaring Skies, who had an extremely long reflex arc, said, "Generally speaking, current quest completed and main quest updated. These two notifications should appear together." But this time, there was a gap of about 10 minutes. "Of course I noticed that," Fong Bujue replied. "I believe the system needs to leave some buffer time between the two time-limited quests. Is that really necessary?" Uncle Worthless asked. "Since this is nightmare difficulty, it's normal for the system to give us time-limited quests one after another, right?" "It's necessary," Hong Hu answered, "because the system needs time to complete the erasure." He paused before continuing. "You said it yourself. This is a nightmare difficulty, so why would it allow the players to die so easily? I believe the erasure mentioned in the quest description is not as simple as turning the players into white light and sending them out of the scenario." His eyes shifted. "I'm afraid the system will arrange an even more despairing and painful death. Yes, for example, a pile of feces suddenly falls from the sky, lands on your face, and seals all of your powers. You'll only be able to leave the scenario when you're suffocating." Fong Bujue added with a dark expression. "Huh?" Hong Hu chuckled and ignored his brother Ju's comment. He turned to walk to the trapdoor, squatted down, and said, "Since the start of the scenario, I've been the only one who hasn't explored the path, right? Then this time I'll go down first." Then he took out a flashlight from his inventory and pushed open the trapdoor on the ground. It looks like a room similar to this one." Ambitionist used the flashlight to shine down and then turned back to say, "I'll be going down first." Before he finished, he leaped to the side and jumped down from the trapdoor. The sound of his landing was soft and steady. Several seconds later, Hong Hu called out, "It's clear, you can all go now." Therefore, the other four filed through the trapdoor and entered the stone room on the lower floor. The area of this stone room was exactly the same as the one above. The only difference was that the ceiling of this floor was not a raised spire, but a flat stone ceiling. "Look over there." After his teammates stood still, Hong Hu raised his flashlight and shone it at the side of the stone room. Doesn't it look suspicious no matter how you look at it?" Everyone turned to look and saw the object that Hong Hu was pointing at. The part about the special restraining measures has been omitted because it has little to do with the main text. Item number, SCP-645. Item safety level. Safe description. SCP-645 is a large Pavonizetto marble disc-shaped object with a human face embedded in it. Of course, it is also made of marble. It looks like the so-called Mouth of Truth carved in the Cathedral of Santa Maria Cosmedina in Rome, Italy. See the movie Roman Holiday for details. The mouth and eyes are empty holes. Whenever you place your hand inside SCP-645's mouth, you will feel warm and moist. SCP-645 has to be cleaned after each activation. When anyone puts their hand inside the Maw of Truth, if they lie, they will awaken the statue and cause their hand to be bitten off by SCP-645 and then swallowed. The swallowed limbs have disappeared to unknown places, and a probe inside the statue showed that it has no esophagus. "This looks like the Maw of Truth," Atobi commented as he looked at the statue. He had been to Europe before and visited the real Maw of Truth, so he recognized it. "Oh, I think I've seen it in an old movie before," Imaginative Horse added. "Actually," Uncle Worthless said, "we don't necessarily need to touch it, right?" He pointed at the other side of the stone room. The door that led to the next floor was in the direction he was pointing at. "Our goal is to reach the bottom floor, so we only need to pass through these entrances that lead down. For weird things like that, it's best if we don't touch them." "You're right," Fong Bujue said, but his body had already reached the statue. "Hey, then why are you walking over there?" Honghu asked. To look for equipment. Feng Bujue replied matter-of-factly. This kind of blind spot that can be ignored has a high chance of hiding a reward. As he spoke, he reached his hand into the statue's mouth. As the saying goes, the only path is filled with traps, and the best treasure chest is hidden in the alley. This is the rule of the game. You're professionals, but this bit of common sense. Before he finished, Brother Ju's expression shifted, and he screamed. What's wrong? Flying Horse was the first to jump forward. He put on his heroic face and got into a fighting stance. Have you been bitten? Do you want to try Meteor Punch? Punch your ass. Do you always use Meteor Punch to solve any situation? Feng Bujue's reply was quite loud. It looked like he was fine. As the saying goes, if you can't solve a problem, you'll have to ascend a dragon. Brother Ma replied seriously. That's a sarcastic comment. It's Rising Dragon Punch. It's not Meteor Punch. Feng Bujue yelled. All right, let's not argue about something so pointless. Uncle Worthless used both of his hands to rub his temples. His head was starting to hurt. What happened? I seem to have touched something. Feng Bujue replied quickly. It's a spherical object. Its surface is smooth, and its size is about the size of a tennis ball. In any case, when I touched it, my hand was bitten. Then try to let go of it, Atobi said. I can't. The part in front of my elbow has been completely bitten to death. Feng Bujue replied. And I can't pull my hand out. He paused. It feels like if I try to force it, my hand will shatter. Sigh. This is what it means to have a cheap hand. Honghu shook his head with a sigh. And you said something like, the road is filled with traps, and the best treasure chest is hidden in the alley. In my opinion, it's more like a hero who falls to his death, a person who drowns in the river. Who told you to be so smug? Answer. 1. Question. Suddenly, a muffled voice came from the mouth of the statue. Every word it spat out was dragged out. The dashes in the statue's words will be omitted later. I'll let you go. Hearing that, the group looked at each other, but no one said anything. Go ahead. Feng Bujue hesitated for 2 seconds before agreeing. You have to tell me the truth, or else I'll bite your hand off, the statue said again. Sure, Feng Bujue replied. Brother Ju was not afraid of his hand being bitten off because he still had a few SCP-500 pills in his inventory. His life points were almost full, so he would not die from injury. In any case, the worst-case scenario was losing a pill and an unknown item that he had not obtained yet. Then listen carefully, the statue asked. Chapter 556. What are you and loot plotting? That was the question posed by the statue. As the question was asked, the expressions of the 4 teammates behind Brother Ju shifted. Feng Bujue only hesitated for a second, and then very calmly raised his hand that was not bitten, pressed it on his shoulder, and replied, Nothing. As soon as he said this, the spell sigil on his shoulder emitted a faint light and then dissipated. Silence descended on the stone room. For a moment, only the sound of the players' breathing could be heard. 5 seconds later, the statue silently let go. Brother Ju pulled his hand back and took out the item from the statue's mouth. Phew! Finally, I managed to fool them. Feng Bujue rubbed his arm and sighed with relief. At that moment, the item's description was unlocked by the system. Even though he was holding it in his hand earlier, he was unable to read the item description. Item name: an old poke ball that has not been used. Item type: other quality, excellent special effect, can capture and store a beast from the crystal maze. Usage requirement: choose Eiffel as your religion. Can be taken out of the scenario. No remark. I hate Pikachu. From the bottom of my heart. Another item that can lower the difficulty of clearing the scenario. Feng Bujue raised his head after reading the description. Didn't I tell you there was no harm in exploring it? But no one paid him any attention. At that moment, the other 4 players, including Brony, were all looking at Brother Ju from the corner of their eyes with naked and suspicious suspicion. What's wrong? Feng Bujue pretended to be nonchalant and asked, Is something wrong? What are you and loot plotting? Honghu stared at Brother Ju and asked slowly. Feng Bujue replied innocently. Didn't I say there's nothing going on? That's right. When you said that, you even exhausted the seal that Rez Sen gave you, Atobi added. That just proves. Uncle Worthless continued. You and Lute are indeed plotting something. Although I don't know what's going on right now. Everyone is looking at you from the corner of their eyes. That's why I'm here to join in the fun. You guys can continue. Unrestrained Pegasus continued. Okay. Feng Bujue said, I did discuss something with Lu Te. He spread out his hands as if it was no big deal. But as for the specifics, forgive me for not being able to tell you. You're not a simple guy. Hong, who adjusted his glasses. We thought you and Lute had perished together. He sneered. I didn't expect that under such circumstances, you and her didn't die, and even became partners. So what? Feng Bujue asked. There are no eternal enemies in this world, only eternal benefits. He shrugged and said with a smile, Is it that strange to make a deal with a boss? Feng Bujue purposely used the term boss and made his tone sound nonchalant. This was because, from the perspective of other players, this was still a game. No matter what happened during the tournament for the best, they would still think that they had run into a group of rare, highly intelligent NPCs in some unique scenario. If you put it that way, I can understand it, Uncle Worthless replied after a few seconds. As a man who had captured a boss monster and turned it into his login lobby's assistant, naturally, he was not surprised by this kind of situation. After all, I'm just a spectator at the market. I don't have any grudge against that boss, so it doesn't matter to me. Atobi shrugged. His words were filled with sadness. Hey, what are you doing? Hong Hu grumbled with annoyance. Have I become the only one making a fuss? This guy is related to the final boss of the big event, so it's normal for me to be surprised. It doesn't look like it's that big of a deal. Even I, who didn't know what was going on, sighed in relief. Imaginative Horse added another line to make his presence known. If there's nothing else, let's move on. Feng Bujue put the pokeball back into his inventory and picked up his catapult. When his hand was bitten by the statue, he had placed the catapult on the ground with his other hand. He said, Hey you, go, and pushed the door open. The group chatted for a while longer before moving toward the portal that led to the next floor. At that moment, what the teammates did not know was Feng Bujue, who appeared calm and collected on the surface, was filled with suspicion. In reality, when the statue asked that question, Feng Bujue was the most shocked of the five. Even though he did not show it from that moment on, his brain had been thinking about the same question. Why would the Maw of Truth ask about him and Lute? This is indeed the main universe of Thriller Paradise, but why would a statue that probably doesn't even have self-consciousness ask me something like that? Feng Bujue mumbled to himself. The thing between me and Lute obviously has nothing to do with this scenario, so this question can't be arranged by the system. Then, could it be that the setting of this statue is to search for the secrets in the other party's mind and ask them questions? He quickly denied that theory. No, this kind of setting will obviously raise many questions. It might be possible if this is a solo dungeon, but if this is a team dungeon, the questions it asks might directly reveal the player's privacy. After eliminating the few possibilities, Feng Bujue connected them to a more reliable answer. Humph! Looks like there is a very powerful person behind this. Who could it be? He thought to himself. Someone who has the power to control the original data structure of this statue outside the scenario and has the motive to ask me that question. A list of suspects appeared in his mind. First, I can rule out Woody. He wouldn't do something like that. If it's 0, the possibility is higher. Perhaps he has heard something about this, and that's why he did this. The other 2 leaders of Origin have the same motive. Other than that, I can't rule out the possibility that it was Lute who wanted to test me. Lastly, even though the possibility is very small, I might have been targeted by the 9 Sciences. With their technology, they should be able to do what I did earlier. While Brother Ju was thinking, Honghu passed through the door of this floor and completed the preliminary inspection of the floor below. Come down. It's safe. Following Ambitionist's shout, everyone entered the 3rd floor of the Temple of Faith one after another. counting from top to bottom. Chapter 557. The size of this third stone room was similar to the previous floor, but the difference was that it was completely empty. Well, this is rather obvious. Uncle Worthless raised his flashlight to look around. Not only is there nothing here, there is not even a door that leads to the lower floor. Could this be a dead end? Unconstrained imagination asked. I think that is possible. He paused. When we were on the surface, didn't we see many spires? Perhaps only one or a few of them lead to the bottom of the temple, and the rest are all dead ends. You have a point. Uncle Worthless nodded in agreement. The possibility of that is high. He thought about it and said, when we entered the temple, we were in such a hurry that we didn't have the time to investigate. We just picked a random spire and went down. So, it is normal for us to take the wrong path. I agree. Hong Hu agreed. I believe there should be some kind of hint outside the temple to point out which spire is the correct path. He sighed. Phew. Thankfully, we only went down 3 floors before we realized that the bottom of this spire was a dead end. There is still time to turn back. We should return to the surface and investigate the spire in the nearby. I say. At that moment, Feng Buju interrupted their conversation. With his dead fish eyes, he raised his finger to point upward and said weakly, the entrance to the bottom has disappeared, huh? The group was shocked and raised their heads in unison. In that instant, their terror points shot up. I'm sorry, but I didn't see how it disappeared. Feng Bujue continued in a light tone. After we came down, my attention was elsewhere. It was not until you said turn back that I instinctively glanced up, and I realized there was nothing on the ceiling. Air. The door was removed so silently, and without leaving a trace in such a short amount of time. Hong Hu used an inconspicuous action to wipe away the cold sweat by his temples. We really can't let our guard down. No, I don't think this has anything to do with being cautious. This kind of shameless setting used in a nightmare scenario can be summed up as impossible to guard against. Feng Bujue continued. Let's take the current situation as an example. The stone room in front of us has no light source. We have to rely on our own lighting equipment to light it up. As he spoke, he used the light on the catapult to look around, and our eyes will naturally move with the light. He paused. As for the relatively dark places, they will be easily overlooked. Speaking of this, he shone the searchlight on the ceiling. The ceiling here is quite high. Generally speaking, no one would deliberately look up to stare at it. Therefore, there would always be a period of time when the 5 of us wouldn't be looking at the door. And during that period of time, anything can happen. He smiled. Actually, even if it's only for an instant, there can be any kinds of unforeseen events. The disappearance of the entrance is just one of them. Stop. I believe you're going to start scaring people again. Atobi quickly cut him off. Even though I know you're just trying to scare us, I still think I'll pee my pants, so please shut up. Imagination is the source of fear, your biggest enemy, Feng Bujue said. Why don't you let me say it out loud, so that we can analyze it in the open? How about this? I'll throw a meteor punch at the ceiling or the ground. Unrestrained Pegasus interjected. Then we'll have a way out. Stop imagining things. To be honest. Feng Bujue shook his head. I believe, if you use meteor punch here, there's a 50% chance of failing to break through the wall, a 30% chance of causing the building to collapse, a 10% chance of triggering a fatal rebound, and a 10% chance of success. Okay, then I'll give it a try. Unrestrained Pegasus lowered his head and raised his arm. Hey, do you even understand Chinese? There's a 90% chance of failure. Feng Bujue yelled. Don't worry. A hero is a man who can make the impossible possible. Brother Ma replied in a tone that was perfect for Chinibu. He was about to make his move. Wait a minute. Uncle Worthless suddenly called out. Don't stop me. I've already made up my mind. Brother Ma waved his arm. Pegasus Pa. Unrestrained Pegasus's voice was suddenly cut off because a strong hand gripped his neck, stopping his movement. I told you to stop. Don't you understand? Uncle Worthless used his arm to lift unrestrained Pegasus off the ground. This shocked Toby and Honghu greatly, but Feng Buja merely raised his brow and said, "Oh." In the next second, Uncle Worthless stomped his foot and dashed out like a ferocious tiger. He gripped unrestrained Pegasus' neck tightly and charged forward. After 3 steps with a bang, unrestrained Pegasus' back slammed into the wall of the stone room. "Who are you?" Uncle Worthless stared at the Pegasus before him and asked with emphasis on every word. Save me." Unrestrained Pegasus' expression was twisted. At that moment, he could only stand on his tiptoes, or else he would have trouble breathing. However, he still used his dying voice to scream, "He's gone mad. He's been controlled by a monster. Kill him." The other 3 looked at each other and were silent for a few seconds. Then, the 3 of them surrounded him and stood in a relaxed posture. They looked at this Pegasus and asked one after another, "Quick, tell us, who are you? Where is the real Brother Ma?" The fake still wanted to make one last struggle. "There are 3 flaws in your disguise." Feng Buju had cut him off and raised 3 fingers. "First, your disguise is too fake. The real Brother Ma is not as dumb as you. He's just a hot-blooded idiot." He put down 1 finger and continued. "Second, under most circumstances, we, players, are unable to attack our allies, but Uncle Worthless managed to attack you. This means that you're not Brother Ma, and you've been seen through by Uncle Worthless." He put down another finger. Third, and the most important point, Ambitionist, who was at the side, took over the conversation and said coldly, "He's a bold and unconstrained person. He will never put on an expression like yours and beg others to save him." After a short silence, the guy who was restrained by Uncle Worthless finally put away his pained expression and revealed a chilling smile. "Humph, a bunch of laughable reasons," he said. "From how I see it, they are not convincing at all." Even though he said that, he still abandoned the disguise and showed his real face. His clothes and body slowly melted into one, and he turned into a black humanoid creature. From the shape of his body, it was hard to tell whether he was male or female. He had a bald head, and there were normal human ears on both sides of his head. The face also had eyes, a nose, and a mouth that were black and white. Could you be?" Feng Bujue's expression turned serious. "Humph, that's right, I am." The man continued in a rather smug tone. Feng Bujue continued, assisting Detective Conan in sending hundreds of innocent people to prison. Thieves, murderers, and criminals who have committed all kinds of crimes. Criminals. F***CK your uncle. Atobi roared. "Now is not the time to complain. Atobi is right." Honghu said, "From how I see it, we should apply torture as soon as possible to dispel the man's arrogance and get Brother Ma's location out of him. That is the most important thing now." "Don't worry, it's just a joke," Feng Bujue replied casually on the surface, but in reality, his inappropriate joke was also a test. His main purpose was to see the reaction of his other 3 teammates, to confirm whether there was another fake among them. "You can guess who it is," Feng Bujue very naturally said as he looked at the fake. "Isn't that right? The spirit of imitation." Chapter 558. "Umph, you do live up to your reputation," the spirit replied with a cold smirk. Feng Bujue. "Ha, you flatter me." Brother Ju replied with a smile. "Why are you being so polite with him?" Atobi said, "Furthermore, it is Uncle Worthless who has seen through his disguise, right? You're just saying that in hindsight, aren't you?" Speaking of which, I'm curious as well. Brother Chai, how did you manage to see through his disguise?" Feng Bujue turned to Uncle Worthless. "Even though I noticed something strange about him before you grabbed his neck, I really didn't think that he was a fake. Actually, I'm not much different from you. Initially, I thought this flying Pegasus was rather weird, but I didn't suspect that he was a fake." When Uncle Worthless spoke, his grip on the spirit did not loosen. That was until the man assumed the stance of flying Pegasus Meteor Punch. "What?" Feng Bujue was startled when he heard that. A series of memories flashed across his mind, and 2 seconds later, he realized, "Oh, the stance is not right." "Huh? That's a reason?" Atobi added, Yes, that's the reason, Uncle Worthless said. Uncle Worthless said, in the summit tournament, I've seen the Heavenly Steed's meteor punch more than once. His movement was different from the one the spirit mimicked. The real flying Pegasus, no matter what stance he used, would always have his left hand above his head. There's also the angle of the two legs. The right leg is closer to the back, and the angle of the bend is more obvious than the left leg, Fong Buju added. And it's not just about the stance, Uncle Worthless said. As Uncle Worthless spoke, his gaze under his sunglasses refocused on the face of the imitation spirit. The unconstrained meteor punch is one of a kind. Even if you search the entire game, no one will be able to replicate its essence. Hey, isn't it just a skill? It's the same no matter who uses it, right? Atobi did not seem to believe him. Of course it's different. You're a professional gamer. How can you not notice this? Fong Buju aside and shook his head. He patted Atobi on his shoulder and explained, most of the offensive skills in Thriller Paradise do not have a clear damage value. This is an obvious hidden setting. He paused for a moment before continuing. It may seem like the same skill, but the effects will definitely be different when used by different people. Even if you have two players of the same level, equipment, and mastery to use the same skill, there will still be a difference in power. In fact, even if it's the same person, under different circumstances, the damage value will fluctuate. Uncle Worthless added, a subtle movement, a change in breathing rate, or even a change in mentality will affect the final result. Not to mention the effects of physical weakness, injuries, and other factors. So that's how it is. Atobi had learned his lesson this time. Even if he died the next second, he had not come to this scenario for nothing. Don't be fooled by the fact that imaginative Pegasus only uses one skill. His strategy is incredibly simple. Uncle Worthless continued. Actually, he is not as simple as he looks. His meteor punch can be said to be one of the best skills in the game. His use of this skill had already reached the point of perfection. He can unleash as much destructive power as he wants, from D to a rank. No wonder, when I was fighting with him, I felt like his punches were getting stronger and stronger. Hong, who pushed his glasses up and mumbled to himself. He can reach such a level after using the same skill so many times. Don't think too much about it. We won't be able to copy his method. Uncle Worthless' eyes shifted slightly. Everyone has their own unique talent. In terms of talent, imaginative Pegasus might not be that good, and his brain is not as good as yours. From the perspective of a professional gamer, he is definitely not some kind of genius, because he only relies on his instinct, hard work, and a bit of luck. He smiled, but he won the championship of the tournament for the best and defeated all of us. That is something that no one can replicate. Wait a minute, the mimic's soul shouted. It could still speak normally even though it was being strangled. Its dying state was just a disguise. From the moment you came to the island, I've been following you in secret and observing your words and actions. In terms of posture, my posture is the same as what imaginative Pegasus did in the taunting forest. What's the difference? My left hand is on top, and my right leg is slightly. The extent of your body spread out and the trajectory of your limbs are different. Fong Bujue interrupted him. It's like two gymnasts performing the same set of technical movements. As long as you observe closely enough, even an outsider can see the difference. He shrugged. Of course, I couldn't see through you either. He pointed at Uncle Worthless. The one who saw through you and attacked you immediately was him. I just figured out after the fact. You were defeated by Uncle Worthless' instantaneous judgment and courage. What he said was true. If it were not for Uncle Worthless' decisiveness, the imitation soul would not have revealed its flaws so quickly. Even Brother Ju and Hong, who would need more clues or other opportunities to see through its disguise. Okay, since it has come to this, I can only accept this result. The imitation soul seemed to have admitted defeat. You did a good job. This is the first time that I've been exposed in such a short time. It paused. Now, can you put me down and talk? It depends on the situation. Uncle Worthless replied in a low voice. As he spoke, he tightened his grip on the imitation soul. Don't worry, I won't resist. To be honest, I don't think I can defeat you, the imitation soul said in a relaxed tone. What if you run away? Brother Jew asked. Humph. If I wanted to run away, I would have done so long ago. None of you can stop me. The imitation soul turned to Brother Jew and said, You've seen my kind before. You should know our abilities. Brother Jew thought for a while and asked tentatively, Aldan. Yes, that's him. The imitation soul replied. Although our abilities are slightly different, I can also teleport. Feng Bujua did not say anything. He took half a step forward and gave Uncle Worthless a look. Uncle Worthless nodded and let go of his grip. After the imitation soul landed, it rubbed its neck and pretended to catch its breath. Then, let's talk about a deal, travelers from another world. Feng Bujua cut to the chase. Tell me, what do you want? The imitation soul smiled and replied, Hee hee, I only have 2 requests. Its eyes scanned the players' faces. First, I want a treasure that you have on you. At this point, the system announcement appeared in the players' ears. A treasure is an item that is above excellent quality, but you are not allowed to give away items that you obtained in the scenario. You can give me anything, as long as it's an item with magic power. Its first request was not for itself, but to help the imitation hand return to its original state. The imitation soul needed a magic item from the other world to complete its spell and save its comrades. Second, the imitation soul continued. I want to hear a ghost story. You can tell it to me, but it has to be scary enough. This request was to satisfy its own need. When he heard this, Uncle Worthless turned to look at his 3 teammates and said calmly, Just kill it. Hey, the imitation soul roared. Don't be hasty, Feng Bujua said. Let it finish first. He paused for a second. It won't be too late to kill it after that. As an NPC, the imitation soul was under a lot of pressure, but it had to finish its sentence. As long as you fulfill my request, I will naturally provide the corresponding reward. There are 3 things that I can do for you, but you can only choose one of them. At this point, it paused for a moment before continuing. The 3 things are, 1. Tell me the whereabouts of unrestrained Pegasus and open the path to the next floor for you. 2. Directly transport the 4 of you to the altar at the bottom of the temple. 3. Bring unrestrained Pegasus to you immediately. Then it smiled mysteriously. Of course, you can reject the deal. If that's the case, I'll leave immediately, and you'll have to pray for yourself. We need to discuss this before we make a decision, Hong Hu replied. Do as you wish. The imitation soul extended its hand and made a pleased gesture. Feng Bujua was not worried that the imitation soul would run away. He waved his hands to signal for his teammates to come over. Therefore, the group followed him to the other corner of the stone room and started to whisper among themselves. I feel like there's some kind of conspiracy going on. Atobi said, Since it said that it can teleport, why is it negotiating with us? It could just run away. No, I think it's reasonable. Feng Bujua denied. I have indeed seen a creature of the same race as it. Even though they look slightly different, there is no doubt that they are the same kind of life form. The one that I've seen before can teleport, and it can bring others with it. The key thing is that guy also likes to listen to ghost stories. From how I see it, it's not that complicated, Hong Hu said. To put it bluntly, this is just a plot choice. When Brother Chai saw through the NPC's disguise, the plot was triggered. He paused for a second before continuing. Actually, this trade is still fair. As long as we hand over an excellent item and tell a zero-cost story, we will be able to get one of the 3 rewards. I also agree to the trade, Uncle Worthless said. But the current problem is, which reward should we choose? The first one, Atobi said instantly. If we choose the second one, won't it mean that we've abandoned Brother Ma? And the third one, even though we will be able to meet up with Brother Ma immediately, the situation will return to how it was several minutes ago. Wrong. Suddenly, Brother Ju used a confident tone to say that he was wrong. Ambitionist, who was beside him, was stunned. What's wrong? Atobi's analysis is quite reasonable. Is that so? Feng Bujua said. Then I have a question. After you find out about Brother Ma's whereabouts, what will you do? Of course, we will go find him, Atobi replied. Do you know the way to this temple? Or have you seen the map of this place? Fong Buji used 2 sentences to stun the man, and he was not done yet. Even if you really have the complete map of the temple, how can you guarantee that Brother Ma will stay where he is and wait for you to find him? Wait a minute, Atobi said. How do you know that Brother Ma will be inside this temple? Perhaps he is somewhere else. Impossible, Fong Buji interrupted. If he was somewhere else, he would have been killed already, wouldn't he? That's not right. Atobi said. The 5 of us entered the temple together. When we passed through the moving door, Brother Ma was not the first and not the last. He never left our sight, so the mimicking spirit had no chance to switch him. Because he was swapped when he was outside, Fong Bujua said calmly. Then why do you say he will be inside the temple? Atobi was confused. You'll understand if you think about it. There is only one time for the switch, Fong Bujua said. And that is when all 4 of you returned into shadow rubbings, and I had not returned to the team yet. He glanced at the mimicking spirit on the other side of the stone room. At that time, it completed the switch with the hand of copying. He paused for a moment, then said, the method is very simple. The hand of copying will release Brony from the shadow. Then the imitation soul will immediately grab Brony and teleport him to a certain place in the temple. Then it moved back and used its shape-shifting power to disguise itself as a shadow rubbings, lying on the ground. At this point, Brother Ju scoffed. Humph! Now that I think about it, these guards are much smarter than I thought. They have already considered the possibility of the hand of copying losing to me. Even though the chance of that is very low, they still prepared a backup plan. At this moment, Hong Hu asked, Then, you mean we should choose the 3rd option? If I'm not mistaken, the 3rd option is the death option. Fong Bujua narrowed his eyes. No, to be precise, it's a team wipe option. After choosing it, the chance of the 5 of us being trapped inside this stone room is very high. Then, you mean the 2nd option is better? Uncle Worthless asked. Of course. Fong Bujua said matter-of-factly. Do you still remember the situation when we completed the previous mission? Without waiting for his teammates to answer, he continued. When we arrive at the destination, the time limit on the player will be removed and the mission will be considered completed. As for the next mission, it would only be triggered after the maximum time limit of the previous main mission had been reached and a buffer period had been set aside. In other words, by choosing the 2nd option, the 4 of us will complete the current main mission and will no longer be threatened by the time limit. Even if the time limit is over and the 4 of us are not next to the altar, we will not be killed because our mission has already been completed. Under this premise, we only need to leave 1 person to wait at the altar, and the others can search for Brother Ma's whereabouts without worry. The worst result, we still can't find him after 2 hours, and he can't reach the altar on his own. If that happens, we will only lose 1 person. The rest of us can still return to the bottom floor and continue to clear the scenario. Fong Bujua finished in 1 breath. He took a breath and said, In comparison, choosing the first option seems unreasonable. We are both looking for a target that is likely to be moving in an unfamiliar environment. Why not start from the end while ensuring our own safety? Also, don't forget to consider the problem from Brother Ma's perspective. He entered the temple earlier than us, but he received the 2nd mission at the same time as us. When he received the new mission, he would have understood after taking a look at the team tab. The 4 of us have also arrived at the temple and have not been killed. At that time, no matter where he is, he will start to move down. This is because he knows very well that instead of aimlessly searching for his teammates in this maze-like place, it is better for him to meet up with us at the end. Perhaps he is already quite close to the altar. If we choose the 3rd option, even if it doesn't result in us being wiped out, it will undoubtedly be a trap for him. Then, as Atobi said, we will return to the awkward situation of the 5 of us being trapped in an enclosed space. After Fong Bujua said that, his teammates were enlightened. After a few more words of discussion, the 4 soon came to a consensus. They quickly returned to the mimicking spirit side and surrounded it like a group of ruffians harassing innocent women on the street. "We've come to a decision. We'll choose the second option," Feng Bujue said. "Oh." The mimicking spirit's tone was one of surprise, but it quickly changed into a sarcastic tone. "Humph, are you going to abandon your teammates? What a bunch of heartless people. Here's a treasure for you." Feng Bujue ignored the other party's words and took out Mario's wrench from his inventory. He passed it to the mimicking spirit. "Take it." Today, the wrench that had been Brother Ju's main close combat weapon was finally going to leave him. As his level and power increased, this weapon became more and more useless. In terms of close combat, Feng Bujue could use his fists and kicks to unleash powerful attacks. Furthermore, he had the blade of must penetrate, a perfect weapon. In terms of usage, the WJQ-308 military shovel had all the functions of a tool, and that included the wrench. Furthermore, after the update, Mario's wrench had become a bound item, so it was impossible to sell it at the auction house. Brother Ju had the intention to retire this item from the stage of history, but due to the significance of this item, he had been hesitating. It was the first excellent quality item that he had drawn from the extra reward. However, now was not a bad time. Instead of using this item to fill the disintegrator, why not use it to contribute to the team? "Humph, then I shall accept it." The mimicking spirit accepted the wrench and shoved it into its chest, storing it inside its body. Then, "Please listen to my ghost story," Feng Bujue said. Chapter 559. It was an early summer night. 6 high school students came to the back of the school. The group of boys were named Li Bin, Jiaming, Hu Sheng, Zhao Wan, Wang Xiaowen, and Wang Xiaowu. That day was the 3rd day after the college entrance exam. Although everything was still unknown before the results were announced, it would not affect their revelry for the next half a month. And tonight, the way they prepared a party was to use textbooks as fuel and have a barbecue party. Perhaps it seemed a bit ridiculous, but for them at that time, it was definitely a good idea. The 6 of them had already agreed on this plan on the 2nd day after the exam. They chose the back of the school as the gathering place, and the time was set at 9 o'clock in the evening. That night, after nightfall, the 6 of them came to the bus station near the school. Wang Xiaowen and Wang Xiaowu, the 2 brothers, were the first to come. They brought the ingredients for the barbecue. Zhao Guan came after them. He brought a portable refrigerator filled with cold beer. Li Bin and Jia Ming also came. They were responsible for the barbecue utensils and tableware. When it was close to 9 o'clock, Hu Xing also came. He brought gasoline and matches. Of course, in addition to these things, each of them brought a backpack full of textbooks. After the 6 of them met, they went up the mountain through a small path. The back of the school was not a steep mountain. To put it bluntly, it was just a barren hillside. Generally speaking, it would take 15 minutes to reach the top of the mountain. The forest on the mountain was not dense. Because no one took care of it for many years, most of the trees had withered, and the roadside was overgrown with weeds. The 6 boys were all hot-blooded teenagers. Although they were carrying heavy things, their speed of going up the mountain was almost unaffected. In less than 20 minutes, they arrived at the top of the back of the mountain. From here, they could see the panoramic view of the school below. From the school building to the field, it was clear at a glance. Not long after, they set up the barbecue utensils, prepared the fuel, and lit the fire. The group of people sat around the fire, talking and laughing, and started the barbecue. They used the textbooks that had tortured them for countless days and nights as paper towels to wipe their hands and mouth. From time to time, they would tear off a few pages or throw the whole book into the fire. They looked at the school building in the distance, many complicated emotions surging in their hearts. There were indeed many bad memories there, but there were also beautiful things. No matter what, the 3 years they spent, there was an indelible part of their growth. Perhaps something that felt bitter today would have a different taste many years later. After 3 rounds of drinking and eating, everyone left. A few hours later, they had finished all the ingredients they had brought. Most of the textbooks had also been burned, but there was still enough beer, about a third left. It was late at night, and Husheng suddenly had an idea. By the way, have you heard of the ghost story about this back mountain? Jia Ming immediately replied, I've heard of her before. I think she's called the school bell Shui Ran. Li Bin said, why did I hear that he was called the life-killing mad demon? Wang Xiaowen and Wang Xiaowu, on the other hand, said, the version we heard is called Scavenger. Zhao Guan shrugged and continued, Wandering Spectre. Huh, so there's so many ghost stories at the back of the mountain? Husheng himself was shocked. He had wanted to use this opportunity to tell a ghost story to scare these kids, but he didn't expect that they had all heard similar stories. Why don't we tell it ourselves? Husheng suggested. The others agreed. Therefore, after chatting for a while, they started to narrate their stories one by one. Actually, things like ghost stories, to put it simply, could be summarized in 3 to 5 sentences, or even one sentence. However, these guys exaggerated and made it sound like a ghost story, and it took them a long time. The school belle Shui Ran mentioned by Jia Ming was basically a very beautiful girl who was ostracized and bullied by other female students because of her appearance. Finally, one day, she couldn't take it anymore. She came to the back mountain and used a utility knife to cut her face and bleed to death. In the 3 months that followed, the girls who had bullied her all died one after another on this mountain. When they died, their faces were severely distorted, as if there was a pair of invisible hands that wanted to pinch their faces into the appearance of another person. Li Bin's life-killing mad demon story was about a crazed, murderous teacher who targeted the students in the school. Every time he killed a student, he would dismember their body and hide it in the back mountain. Until one night, he went up the mountain again to dump the body, but he never came back down. Later, the police found his body on the mountain, and around it, they found a large number of other body parts. The body parts were like a swarm of insects that covered the teacher's body, and no one could pull them off. The Wang brothers' scavenger story was the simplest. It said that sometimes on the mountain, there would be a hunchbacked old man with a green face who carried a basket. If he greeted you, you should not answer. Just pretend you didn't hear him, or else you would be tossed into the basket and carried away. Zhao Guan's wandering spirit was, once upon a time, there was a very cowardly student who didn't dare to go to school because he was afraid of being bullied. Therefore, every morning after leaving home, he would hide in the back mountain and only return home when the sky was dark. After a period of time, due to the lack of lunch, his body became weaker and weaker. Combined with the fact that he would be spacing out the whole day, his mental state became unfocused. In the end, the school and his parents found out about this matter. They put all the blame on the student without any explanation. His family even gave him a good beating. However, the next day, the student left home like usual and never returned. From that day onwards, people would often see a shadow wandering the mountain, but once someone got close, he would disappear and no one could find him. The 5 of them finished telling their stories. Finally, it was Husheng's turn to tell his story. As the initiator, he was confident that his story would be the scariest, so he chose to be the last. By then, the atmosphere had become quite strange. Even though the 6 boys were at an age where they were not afraid of anything, after listening to 4 ghost stories in a row in this kind of environment, their palms were sweating. Seeing that it was almost midnight, when the supernatural atmosphere was at its peak, Husheng began his story. The ghost story that I'm going to tell has no fixed name because it has too many names and no one knows the original name. Husheng was a good talker, so he started off with a mysterious story. The story goes like this: many years ago, there were 2 students at this school, 1 male and 1 female. They were childhood sweethearts, and when they were in their 2nd year of high school, they were already in a relationship, and they even had a physical relationship. However, the good times did not last long, and this was eventually found out by both parents. What happened next was naturally a drama of breaking up a pair of lovebirds. However, this pair of lovers did not give up just like that. They had no money, and they did not have the ability to survive without their family. The only thing they could do was to use their own lives to complain to the world. Therefore, on a dark and windy night, the 2 of them came to the mountain. At this point, Husheng suddenly stopped talking. His expression abruptly changed, and his face suddenly turned deathly white, his eyes staring straight ahead. Li Bin, Jiao Ming, Zhao Guan, and the Wang brothers also felt that something was wrong. They turned their heads nervously and looked in the direction that Hu Sheng was looking. He saw a man and a woman, each holding a flashlight, walking slowly along the path up the mountain. Even though they were not wearing school uniforms, from their appearance, they looked like high school students. Vaguely, he could even hear their conversation. "Hey, do you feel that the surroundings have suddenly become cold?" The female student said. "Really?" The male student said nonchalantly. "It's probably just your imagination." He forced a smile. "It's just a test of courage. Don't be so nervous." Chapter 560. It's better than nothing. The imitation soul pretended to dig its nose, although it did not have nostrils, and replied in a nonchalant tone. After all, it's hard to listen to ghost stories on the island. It's been a few weeks since I last heard one. But it hasn't been that long. Toby mocked. Looks like there are quite a number of visitors from another world who have visited this place. Feng Bujua probed calmly. Not all of them are people like you, the mimicking soul said. There are also humans from this universe and other creatures. It paused. But that is not the main point. It seemed to realize that the other party was trying to trick them, so it quickly stopped and changed the topic. No matter what, the deal is done. Then, please come over and place your hands on my arms. The mimicking soul took a step forward and opened its arms. After exchanging a look, the players all moved forward to place their hands on the mimicking soul. I thought it would be sticky to the touch, but it's fine, Toby commented. The other 3 players shared the same thought. Before they came into contact with it, they all thought that the spirit of imitation's body was some kind of glue-like substance, but when they actually came into contact with it, they realized that the surface of the spirit of imitation's body was very smooth and dry. Its body temperature was also very low, and its skin was as dry as leather that had just been taken out of the freezer. What is there to be surprised about? Adjusting the body's humidity, temperature, and strength to adapt to the surrounding environment. This is a very normal self-adjustment mechanism. The mimicking soul used a prideful tone to continue. Basically, all high-grade creatures, and even some low-grade animals have this ability. Of course, this includes you humans, but you are very weak in this regard. At this point, the scenery before the players changed. At the same time, a system notification rang in their ears. Current mission completed. In the blink of an eye, they moved from a dark, sealed stone room to a palace that was as wide as a plaza and had a dome that was about 20 meters tall. At the front of the palace stood an altar that was shaped like a crown. In the hall, a dark brown stone path divided the hall into 2. On both sides of the hall, there were many totem poles about 5 meters tall, arranged in an irregular pattern. At the end of the hall, there was a 10-meter-tall, circular arched door. The bottom of the door was connected to the stone path. On the stone walls around the sacrificial hall, there were countless murals made up of geometric shapes. Those patterns were like constellations in the night sky. Each of them occupied a corner, but they were faintly connected. In the center of each group of patterns, there was a shining mountain stone. It was these hundreds and thousands of glowing stones that illuminated this majestic palace, presenting a magnificent scene. You can't be blamed for this. After all, from a physiological point of view, you are simply a disaster in the history of evolution. The imitation soul obviously had not finished its sentence. It continued with the content before the teleportation. Your appearance clearly has all the characteristics of intelligent life, but your insides are a mess. In the eyes of my race, 80% of your organs are superfluous defective products. Its performance is as unreliable as a cheap color TV. That's why your lifespan is so short, and you are repeatedly tortured and destroyed by various diseases. At this point, it put down its arm, and the players also took their hands off of it. In this universe, there are many races with similar intelligence as you, but the number of organs in their bodies is far less than yours. Generally speaking, they only need 2 to 3 organs to complete all of their metabolism. For example, digestion, breathing, endocrine, immune system, and so on. They're all taken care of by these few organs. The quality, strength, and precision of these organs are incomparable to yours. The imitation soul continued. The imitation soul continued. If I have to make a comparison, your body is like an outdated desktop assembled computer. It is filled with all kinds of outdated and unqualified parts. Their bodies are integrated super optical computers. Decades have passed, and when your parts start to malfunction one after another, they're not even out of warranty yet. Even if you use them carefully and carefully maintain every corner, you're only delaying the time of their obsolescence. As for other people's parts, no matter how you use them, they will not have the same congenital defects as yours. In short, your adaptability to the environment, as well as your resistance to diseases and dangerous accidents, are all too weak. The imitation soul spoke very enthusiastically, but at this moment, the only one who was listening seriously, understanding, and thinking was Feng Bujue. The others' attention had basically shifted elsewhere. They were either looking at the mission panel or inspecting the surrounding environment. Although Brother Ju also looked at the mission panel and observed the surrounding environment, he was considered a special case. He was a person who had long been used to multitasking. It was easier for him to concentrate by keeping his brain busy. I see. After Feng Bujue finished listening to the other party, he immediately continued. In fact, I also have great dissatisfaction with the current situation of humans being at an evolutionary bottleneck. I've always been in favor of artificial organs, cyborg bodies, or the idea of storing human consciousness in virtual worlds. Although these are not natural selection, but evolution driven by the use of technology by living creatures, there is no doubt that it will be an improvement. As long as the way of a life cycle is changed, it can change the demand for existing resources, greatly extend the lifespan, and eliminate most of the innate discrimination. Oh, your idea is quite interesting. The imitation soul continued with interest, but in the eyes of your compatriots, aren't you a little too radical? Being radical is better than being stupid. In my world, there are many smart people who have been labeled as radicals. They are so outstanding and detached from the times, but they are despised, called heretics, lunatics, idiots, and even killed, Feng Bujue said calmly. It turns out that stupid people often win. They are a very large group, including the real idiots, the cowards who are willing to be associated with the idiots, and a small number of instigators and leaders with ulterior motives. They have burned national heroes, executed great scientists, and arrested teachers who taught the theory of evolution in schools. There is also a group of people who try to destroy the culture of their own people so much so that thousands of years of etiquette, human relations, poetry, and laws were all wiped out. But many years later, this group of people sat and enjoyed the knowledge and achievements left behind by the radicals. They saw it as natural, as common sense, and they looked down on those who were even more ignorant, those who did not even have common sense. At the same time, with jealousy and fear, they went to condemn those who had more advanced ideas, calling them radicals. Your arrogance and stubbornness confuses me. The imitation soul laughed. But it is still very interesting. At the same time, on the other side, Uncle Worthless, Honghu, and Atobi were already more than 10 meters away. They looked like they were looking around for a map, but actually, they did not want to get involved in the conversation between Brother Bujue and the imitation soul. So they walked further away and pretended not to hear it. Hey, can you guys understand the conversation over there? I don't, but it sounds awesome. Atobi mumbled. A small lecture on anti-human philosophy. The topics are ambiguous, and the viewpoints might not be correct. It's better if you don't understand. Hong, who pushed his glasses up, and added, Let's turn our attention back to the scenario. Uncle Worthless wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead and changed the topic. No matter what, the current situation is not bad. Just like Brother Feng's analysis, our mission has been successfully completed. Now that the time limit has been removed, there is no new main quest in the quest tab. Therefore, we can leave this place without worry and turn back to look for Unbounded. How about the three of us go look for him. Atobi turned back to look at the altar. Seeing that Brother Jew was still chatting with the imitation soul, he added, "Let them stay here and chat. Perhaps Feng Bujue will be able to get more information from them." Not a bad suggestion. Hong Hu agreed. After all, we have to leave someone here to prevent Unbounded from going astray from us. I agree, Uncle Worthless added. Then, the three of them turned their heads to yell at Brother Jew, explaining the plan of action. Feng Bujue was chatting happily with the imitation soul. When he heard that his three teammates volunteered to run an errand, naturally, he accepted it happily. Therefore, the four split up again to work on two fronts. Chapter 561. The three of them walked out of the arched door of the sacrificial hall and entered a dark tunnel. The further they went, the narrower the tunnel became. Soon, it was the size of a normal corridor. Even though there were occasional turns, they did not find a fork in the road. Along the way, Uncle Worthless was suddenly reminded of something and turned to Atobi. "Atobi, there is something that I'm curious about, and I wish to ask you." Atobi was startled when he heard that. "A player at Uncle Worthless level has a question for me to ask?" What is it?" Atobi replied. "It's..." Uncle Worthless asked, "What kind of gaming studio is Hyoti Emperor?" "What kind?" Atobi repeated the question with a thoughtful expression, but internally, he was thinking, there are different types of gaming studios? Obviously, there are. Roughly speaking, there were 4 types of gaming studios. The first was the comprehensive type. Most of these studios were large, wealthy, and famous companies. The scope of their business had already exceeded the gaming industry, and they relied on their brand alone to guarantee their profit. The second type was the talent type. The scale of these studios ranged from small to large. The basic idea was to focus on the people, and the core idea was to cultivate star players. By exporting talent to the outside world, they could earn a sizable income. The third type was the business type. This was a more marginal type. Not everyone had the ability to do it, but those who could do it would earn quite a bit. This type of studio did not have high requirements for their employees' gaming ability. They needed players who were patient, good at observation, and good at socializing. They treated gaming as a business, relying on the hype of virtual items, controlling the price of goods, and buying and selling information to make a fortune. The fourth type was the practical type. Small to medium-sized studios usually belong to this category. Their main business was the most basic part of the industry, helping or leading people to practice and farm gold. Basically, it was a rough job that was not that glamorous or enjoyable. After some time, it would become mechanical, and it would make people feel tired. Furthermore, they had to endure all kinds of criticism because their gaming style was purely for efficiency, so they would often ruin other players' gaming experience. Even if they were called locusts, they could not refute that. The above information could be considered as basic knowledge. In 2055, if you want to be in the game industry, be it as a player or open your own studio, you have to master this. If you don't even know your basic position, then you're just digging your own grave. At this point, everyone must have realized that. Indeed, Atobi-sama, or rather, Jin Fugue, had jumped into the gaming industry without knowing anything. Fortunately, his family was quite well off, which allowed him to make some mistakes. Jin Fugue's father had been in business for many years and was a sensible person. He was quite open-minded. If his son wanted to start a game studio, then let him do it. After all, it was a legal industry and the investment required was not high. Even if he couldn't do anything, he wouldn't lose much money. Anyway, it was better than squatting at home after graduating from university. Therefore, with a heart filled with passion, anticipation, and ignorance, Atobi started his gaming career. It's the kind that... Atobi stammered. The kind that doesn't have many members but is quite powerful. Oh, is it the elite route? Then you're a talent type, Hong Hu added. By the way, how come your studio's official website isn't online yet? That, Atobi answered awkwardly. Because the company hasn't been set up for long, and the game business is quite busy. Actually, If no one reminded him, he probably would not have remembered to set up a studio's website, even after half a year. Is that so? Han, who did not suspect anything. I can understand. A small studio with few members will have this kind of problem. Actually, it's already impressive that you can maintain a normal operation, Uncle Worthless added. I'm quite impressed by Toby. He's already the boss of a studio at such a young age. You must have quite a lot of bank loans, right? Air. It's nothing. Toby was too embarrassed to admit that he was a rich kid in this kind of atmosphere. Don't worry. Back then, Shiva, Laughing Blade, and the others started their own companies around your age. Haven't they all become famous characters? Honghu laughed. Your studio has just started, and you already have players like Ming Nan and the others. The future is bright. He paused. But since it's a talent-type studio, connections are important. Even if it's just to keep up appearances, you have to recruit more employees. After the newcomers have matured, you and the core team will be able to take care of the offline stuff. Understood. Toby nodded. How about this? After the scenario is over, let's add each other as friends. I still have some friends in the circle. There are some professional players who are quite strong. I can introduce them to you, Ambitionist said. Oh, that's a great help. Toby's eyes glowed. Thank you. Haha, you're welcome, Ambitionist said with a smile. Even though my friends are quite talented, they don't have enough experience. They didn't succeed when they sent their resumes to famous studios, and they're not interested in those small and medium-sized studios that focus on actual work. Instead, they went to some strange, small studios because they were afraid that they would be scammed. Since you're willing to take them in, it's a win-win situation. We're not that close. Aren't you afraid that I'm also a black-hearted boss who exploits his employees? Toby asked with a smile. You don't look like it. Uncle Worthless then added, I'm quite a good judge of character. Even though we haven't known each other for long, be it you or Ming Nan and the other two, none of you look like people who came from a studio. I think so too, Honghu added. Okay, I'll take that as a compliment, Toby replied. Toby's trip to this Team Nightmare dungeon was not wasted. Whether he would get the final reward or not aside, at least he had gained something more practical. Oh, I also have something to ask you. At that moment, Toby felt like it was time to change the topic, so he turned to Uncle Worthless. About how you exposed the mimicry spirit earlier. At the time, was the only thing you relied on? Yes, that was all, Uncle Worthless replied. Toby said, Where does your confidence come from? Uncle Worthless hesitated for a moment before he smiled and said, Actually, the reason is very simple. I've studied the recordings of the tournament of the best many times. I've observed every single one of the contestants' battle style in detail, especially those small habitual movements and the instantaneous reaction when faced with danger. I've studied them frame by frame. Brother Worthless, you've done your homework as well. Hong, who replied instantly. The same goes for you. Uncle Worthless laughed. I believe you've done as much research as I have. At this point, two sharp gazes met briefly before quickly moving away. Everything was said without words. Only Toby, who stood to the side, lowered his head silently. He could not help but think these two professional players before him had done so much in their own name. On the other hand, he was the leader of a gaming studio, but until now he had been playing the game with the mentality of earning money through playing. Jingu Ol Chu and Ming Ming could have that mentality because their job was to play games, and they had done a good job. In other words, they had the makings of a professional gamer. That was the only thing they could do, use their gaming skills to support the studio. But Toby was different. He was the investor, manager, and decision-maker of the studio. The things that he needed to do were not something that could be done in-game. At that moment, it dawned on Toby why his three bad friends refused to queue up with him and would mercilessly say things like, You're too weak, just go offline. Actually, it was not that they did not want to play games with their best friends, and they did not think that Toby was too weak. They merely wanted Toby to do what he was supposed to do. This was because they were no longer for students hiding in the dormitory. They were adults who had stepped into society and needed to survive through gaming. The three of them understood that already, but Atobi did not. He did not seem to have grown up yet. At the end of the day, he was just playing. He was using his youth and his family's money to play. The so-called studio was just a cover shrouded in the aura of dreams and entrepreneurship. It allowed him to stay with his good brothers and play games all day long. Now that he thought about it, he did not deserve to be called the boss. He rarely did those boring investigations and research work, and he never came up with any detailed or long-term gaming plans. The studio's daily schedule was one day at a time. I really am an idiot who never grows up, Atobi grumbled internally. I am not a qualified leader, and I am not a qualified professional player. He gave a long sigh and raised his eyes to look at the two players who were walking beside him. A real professional needs to have qualities like these two, or else how can I have the face to call myself a professional? He could not help but be reminded of a classic movie line. Nothing is easy in the adult world. Hey, look over there. Suddenly, Hong, who stopped moving and raised his flashlight to say. His words pulled Atobi's attention back to the scenario that he was in. Uncle Worthless also assumed an alert posture and focused his attention in the direction that Hong, who was pointing at. Then he saw a cluster of green light appear at the end of the corridor, and it was slowly approaching him. Chapter 562. When the person got closer, the three finally saw it was Brother Ma. At that moment, Flying Horse was covered in dust, and he looked like a mess. He held a silver torch in his hand, and the tip of the torch was burning with a green flame. Brother Ma soon saw his teammates. It is you guys. When I saw the flashlight, I knew it was you guys. Are you okay? Uncle Worthless asked. I'm fine. We ran into some monsters and traps on the way, but I didn't lose much life points, Flying Horse replied. The four exchanged a few simple words and then turned to head toward the ritual hall. Along the way, Uncle Worthless and the rest explained what happened after they ran into Feng Bujue, and Flying Horse shared his experience. Just as Brother Ju predicted, imaginative Pegasus was indeed teleported away when the four of them were trapped. Of course, he did not know about the switch, and he had no idea why he was suddenly transported to the temple. They chatted as they walked, and soon they reached the ritual hall. After stepping through the arch door, they saw Feng Bujue and the mimicking soul next to the altar. 10 minutes had passed, but the two of them were still chatting, and they looked like they were in the middle of a conversation. Oh, you guys are back so soon. When Brother Ju saw his four teammates, he stopped the conversation with the mimicking soul and turned to his teammates. I told you I was right to choose the second option. Now, the mission has been completed easily. Since you're all here, the mimicking soul scanned the players and said, It's about time for me to leave. You're not going to chat anymore? Feng Bujue asked. Humph. Don't treat me like an idiot, Feng Bujue, the mimicking soul said. I know what you're planning. I'm just playing along with you so that you won't worry. He thought. Feng Bujue smiled. Then, forgive me for not seeing you off. I don't need you to send me off. At this point, the mimic soul seemed to have thought of something, and it continued, I see that you're quite a sensible fellow, so I might as well give you a free piece of advice. It paused for a moment, and its tone changed slightly. If you encounter the heart of fear, it's best to run away immediately. You humans can't fight against it. Before he could finish his sentence, the imitation soul had already disappeared from everyone's sight. What's going on? Atobi asked. Is it trying to trick us? The heart of fear should be its companion. Why would it give us such a hint? Who knows? Uncle Worthless said. Perhaps the relationship between the four guards is not as simple as we thought. That's right. The imitation soul and the hand of copying have a good relationship, but that doesn't mean that the relationship between all four guards is the same. Feng Bujue turned around to tell his teammates. Furthermore, the duty of the guards is not to kill, so it's normal for them to give us hints. That's not right. Earlier, when we were in the rock-paper-scissors area, if the hand of copying had successfully imprinted all of us on the ground, when the time limit was up, we would have all been dead, Atobi replied. That's not something they can control. Feng Bujue replied. Things like erasure by the system are things that only affect us players. It has nothing to do with the rules of Devil's Maw Island. He shrugged. Think about it. If the goal of the guards was to kill us, then we would have died a long time ago. That's true. Hong, who pushed on his glasses and added, using the imitation soul as an example, if it wanted to kill us, it would have teleported us to the bottom of the swamp. After all, it wouldn't have drowned there. It would have been better if you didn't tell me that. Toby shivered. Now that you mention it, I'm quite afraid. By the way, what did the imitation soul mean by that? Hong, who turned to ask Brother Ju, what do you mean by, I know what you're planning? Oh, that. Feng Bujua smiled. Huh, why do you think I chatted with it for so long? Because you two share the same goal in the field of anti-humanity? Hong, who poked fun at the right time. It's to prevent it from using the same trick again. Uncle Worthless chimed in. Feng Bujua snapped his fingers and pointed at Uncle Worthless. You're right. Even though he was praised, Uncle Worthless was not as smug as Brother Ju. He continued to explain in his usual tone. If we had the imitation soul leave immediately after we arrived at the altar, then this might have happened. It would have teleported to another location and disguised itself as unrestrained spirit before blending into our group again. So that's how it is. Hong, who understood. His eyes turned back to Brother Ju. You used the conversation to stall it, to prevent it from using the same trick again. Yes, that's how it works. Feng Bujua tilted his head to the side and made a helpless expression. But I have to go back to the original topic. This mimicking soul is very intelligent. The fact that it said something like, I'm just playing along with you so that you won't worry means that it has already seen through my intention. Brother Ju scratched his head. For an NPC with such high intelligence and personality, there's an 80 to 90% chance that it's unique data. It should be at the same level as the few troublesome characters that I've encountered in the past. That kind of thing doesn't matter. Unrestrained Spear interrupted. Unconstrained Sky Steed interrupted. There's a very serious problem right now that we have to solve it first. What problem? His teammates all turned to look at him and asked in unison. I'm hungry. Brother Ma's answer was clean and concise. The 3 words were filled with dominance. The other 4 people staggered and almost fell to the ground. Now that you mention it, Feng Bujua said, counting from the time we entered the scenario, it has indeed been almost 4 hours. Even if we were just full by the system of the time, we should be feeling hungry now. Some things just could not withstand a nagging. It would have been fine if he did not mention it, but once he did, it was obvious. Suddenly my legs are sore, and I'm super hungry, Toby said as he sat down with his legs crossed. That was quite exhausting. Uncle Worthless' hand moved to his stomach. From the Leech Forest to the Taunting Forest, through the Swamp of the Specters, and finally into the temple, just the distance we've traveled is immeasurably long. If this was in real life, we wouldn't have been able to finish that in a day. There is something that I've been meaning to tell you, but there hasn't been a chance. Hong, who continued, I noticed the exhaustion of my stamina points seems to be much faster than in a normal scenario. He paused. I believe that is caused by the unique setting of this scenario. Fatigue, hunger. Feng Bujua licked his lips. The real threat appears to be surfacing. As he spoke, he also sat down with his legs crossed and lifted his head to look at Brother Ma. Brother Ma, when you walked into this hall, the main quest was already completed, right? That's right. Unconstrained replied. Okay, Feng Bujua said thoughtfully. I predict there are 2 possibilities for the next main quest to appear. Either it will be 10 minutes after all the players have completed the previous quest, or it will be 10 minutes after the fixed time limit of the previous quest, which is the 3 hours, has been used up. He sighed. Let's hope it's the latter. At least we can use the extra 2 hours to rest. That's hard to say, Uncle Worthless said. Since this is Team Nightmare mode, we should be prepared for the worst. Of course, I understand that, Feng Bujua said. That's why I said let's hope that's the case. The key is still food and water, Brother Ma said. If we sit here without food and water, we won't be able to rest, right? Well said. Feng Bujua smiled. Do you have any food with you? Of course not. Brother Ma answered with a smile. A hero was a hero. That was how magnanimous and open-minded he was. Okay, Feng Bujue shrugged helplessly. He looked around at his teammates and asked, "Did anyone bring any food or water?" Chapter 563. Uncle Worthless took out a cigarette, lit one, and puffed out the smoke. I only have cigarettes." Atobi shook his head. "No," Honghu replied. "I never buy those useless consumables." Very good." Feng Bujue shrugged. "I don't have any either." "That's normal," Honghu added. "Food and water are not necessities, so most players won't carry them with them." He thought about it for a few seconds before adding, "But since the system has given us the relevant setting, it means that there has to be a solution." "You have a point." Uncle Worthless nodded. "The fact that we don't have food and water is something that is already on the surface. The system must have calculated that when it generated the scenario. Even with that premise, the system still gave us the setting of hunger and thirst. This means that we're about to enter the rhythm of surviving in the wilderness." Atobi said, I've been paying attention to that for a long time." Feng Bujue said as he took out a twig from his pocket. "Why do you think I picked up these twigs from the tree of ridicule? Wasn't it to have a taste of cooked food?" He shook his head and put the twig away. "Unfortunately, along the way, we didn't even see a bird." He sighed. "If I had known, I would have collected some leeches. Then we wouldn't be in such an awkward situation. Even though I have no idea whether they will kill us or not, at least we can try. Can you not bring up something so disgusting?" Atobi replied, "Even if we won't die from eating them, I wouldn't consider eating something like leeches." "TSK. So picky," Feng Bujue scoffed. "You've never been hungry since you were young." "Yes. I've never been hungry before. So what?" Atobi grumbled with annoyance. "I was born under the red flag and grew up in the spring. 3 meals a day and a bath before bed. Humph. Shameless." Feng Bujue scoffed with condescension. "What? You're not normal yourself, and you dare to call me shameless?" Atobi was shocked. Feng Bujue revealed a gloomy expression. "You, who have been living in a greenhouse since childhood, are really too ignorant." His gaze swept over the other party from head to toe. "Do you know, the protein in your body is 4 times that of beef. Insects have 4 times more protein than beef." Atobi yelled twice before he was suddenly reminded of something, and his expression shifted. "Hey, wait, what do you want?" He stared at his brother, Ju, warily. "You want to eat people? Well, this is indeed one of the plans," Feng Bujue replied. As soon as he said this, the 4 teammates took a few steps back and looked nervously at Brother Ju. If someone else said this, it would undoubtedly be a joke. However, since Feng Bujue had said something like this, it was hard to say. No one knew what this guy was thinking. "I have a kind of medicine." Feng Bujue continued from where he left off. "The effect is similar to senzabine. It can not only remove all abnormal status, but it can also replenish the deficiency. As long as it's not fatal and is treated in time, it can wait." Atobi reacted quickly this time. He interrupted him. "Don't tell me. You want me to pull out a few pieces of meat from my thigh or arm to use as food and then take a pill to replenish it? Do you mind?" Feng Bujue asked calmly. "Of course. How can I not mind?" Atobi roared. Brother Feng." Uncle Worthless then turned to Brother Ju. "Actually, we are not that hungry." Unrestrained Pegasus quickly added, Yes, I can hold it in for a while longer. There's no need to be so polite." Feng Bujue ignored their advice and continued. "I am in the same situation as all of you. I know very well how hungry I am." As he spoke, he pulled out a cleaver from his backpack like nothing had happened. "Holding it in is not good for the stomach. Don't push it." Atobi stood up. "We are teammates now. We cannot attack each other." "I know," Feng Bujue said. "I did not say that I have to eat you." Everyone was startled when they heard that, and the next second, their expressions changed to one of respect. "Then, are you planning to cut off your own flesh?" Ambitionist probed. "Yes," Feng Bujue replied. The calmness he showed when he said that raised the terror points of his teammates. That doesn't sound so good. Toby added. After all, it's human flesh. Don't tell me. None of you have this kind of fantasy before? Fong Bujua used a provocative gaze to scan the group, and a wicked smile appeared on his lips. This is a rare opportunity. Are you sure you don't want to give it a try? Your hopeful expression has already betrayed you. Hong mocked. Don't confuse us with you. I'm not interested either, unrestrained Pegasus added. Uncle Worthless also said, we appreciate your kindness. Ah, you're not going to use such a convenient solution? Fong Bujua sighed with disappointment. You only need 1 bottle of life points recovery potion and 1 pill to have a full meal. Such a perfect plan. Even so, other than Brother Jew, no one else felt that it was a pity. Right at this moment, the system notification suddenly rang. Main mission has been updated. TSK. It's finally here, Hong Hu said. But it only gave us 10 minutes to rest. That's expected. Fong Bujue replied casually. At the same time, he opened the game menu and glanced at the quest tab. The new main quest appeared. Use the altar inside the altar of sacrifice to summon and defeat the god of wandering, Wakir, within 15 minutes. Looks like we'll have to fight the boss on an empty stomach. After reading the quest, Fong Bujue put away the cleaver and walked toward the altar. The other 4 hurried to catch up, and they pulled themselves together. They understood that the time for idle chatter was over. Even though the quest did say, use the altar, there was no mention of how to use it. Uncle Worthless soon realized this problem and said, looks like this is part of the puzzle as well. Could the actual method be related to the pictures on the walls? Toby asked as he looked around. That's not good, unrestrained Pegasus added. There are more than 1,000 pictures, and I can't understand any of them. Don't worry, we don't understand them either, Hong Hu said. They're the microcosms of other universes, Fong Bujue said without turning around. You know that as well? Toby gasped. Not really, when Fong Bujue replied. He was lying on the altar like a toad. He carefully observed every inch of the pattern on the altar. But when I was chatting with the mimicking soul earlier, I casually mentioned it, and it gave me a simple explanation. He pointed at the hall behind him. With regards to the totem poles, they are carved with the low-level gods of this universe, including but not limited to the 5 that we worship. Oh, Uncle Worthless thought for a few seconds and said, then, could there be a clue to summon him on Walker's totem? Based on what the mimicking spirit said, the totems are only symbolic. When Fong Bujue said that, his face was practically stuck to the altar. He even used his nose to sniff at the stone slab. But you can go and take a look. Perhaps you might find something unexpected. He waved his hand. I will be responsible for this altar. Don't worry, I will not make any mistakes. I believe you, Hong Hu said. Look at you. You're just short of using your tongue to pretend I didn't say anything. Inspecting an object inside a scenario can create such a creepy feeling. Toby sighed. I really can't read him. Facing Brother Jew's searching method that used all 5 senses, the 4 teammates naturally couldn't stand it anymore. They very sensibly moved away from the altar. After a short discussion, the 4 split up and went to different parts of the altar to conduct a more normal search. 5 minutes passed by in a flash. At this moment, suddenly, Chapter 564. Fong Buju yelled. I get it now. Hearing that, everyone turned to look. They realized that Brother Jew was squatting on the other side of the altar. It was unclear what he was looking at. There's no time to waste. Come over here, Fong Bujue said loudly. Uncle Worthless Group had not found any valuable clues in the past 5 minutes. So when they heard Brother Jew say that, they gathered without hesitation. It did not take long for the 4 of them to stand behind him. I found 2 obvious hints. Fong Bujue pointed at a stone slab that protruded before him. Look closer, there are 2 pictures here. As he spoke, he reached out his right hand and placed his palm on the stone slab. At that moment, the originally gray stone glowed with light, causing some orange patterns to appear to form 2 miniature murals. The picture on the left is quite obvious. Fong Bujue pointed at the pattern as he explained. Look, it's a picture of a group of people peeing on the altar and giving the middle finger. You're right. Atobi was covered in cold sweat. What the hell is this? This probably means that we have to desecrate the altar. Feng Bujue replied. The details shouldn't be limited to the content of the picture. In any case, we only need to use some nasty method to provoke the god to make him show himself. Sounds like your specialty, Honghu commented. Indeed, I am very good at this, but don't rush to make a decision because there is a second solution. Feng Bujue then moved his hand to the picture on the right. This picture is rather abstract. It took me some time to understand it, he explained. Look, the one sitting on the altar, at first glance, it looks like a sea anemone, but it's actually a woman, or to be more precise, a young girl. Then, this means that we have to find a young girl to be the sacrifice? Unrestrained, Pegasus asked. Correct. Feng Bujue nodded. At the same time, he pulled his hand back and stood up. It's too filthy. Let me crush this despicable god with my iron fist of justice. Unconstrained, heavenly steed swore. Killing him is a must. After all, the mission requires us to do so. However, Feng Bujue paused for a moment and glanced at everyone meaningfully. We can choose how to summon him. The method of summoning might affect the difficulty of the boss battle. Honghu speculated. I think so too. Uncle Worthless said, but we don't have any female players in our team. I'm afraid we can only choose the first option. His words stopped here because at this moment he felt a burning gaze on him. Brother Feng, what do you want to do? Uncle Worthless suddenly became nervous. Brother Ju stared at Uncle Worthless with a perverted look in his eyes. Brother Worthless, do you still remember the magical seal Re-Sen gave you? After his reminder, everyone remembered. Yeah, there's such a trick. Honghu added. Atobi muttered. Is it the camouflage ability? Unconstrained, heavenly steed did not express his opinion. He looked at Uncle Worthless with a wide smile. You guys should know when to stop. Uncle Worthless replied expressionlessly. You said it yourself. If we have no other choice, we can only choose the first summoning method. Feng Bujue put on a serious face again. This means that using the method of desecrating the altar to summon the boss is not a good idea. He paused before adding, but now, it's not like we have no other choice, right? I'd rather increase the difficulty of the boss battle. Uncle Worthless replied. I'll take responsibility for any loss. Feng Bujue walked forward to pat Uncle Worthless on his shoulder and said with sincerity, as a professional player, you have to put the team first. Your dirty eyes that were filled with anticipation once again betrayed you. Uncle Worthless pushed Brother Ju's hand away. Fine then. Feng Bujue shrugged. Since you're so against something as exciting as disguising yourself as a girl. As he spoke, he took a step forward and stepped onto the altar. We have no choice but to use the first method. What are you doing? Are you going to do a striptease? Atobi narrowed his eyes. If you are, please give me a heads up so that I can gouge out my own eyes. Sigh. So be it, a girl it is. Uncle Worthless sighed and walked onto the altar. Get down. He pushed Brother Ju, and the latter used the momentum to leap back to the surface. Oh, a feminine version of Uncle Worthless. Suddenly, I'm looking forward to it. Atobi's eyes widened with excitement. Humph, a bunch of perverts. Honghu pushed his glasses up and scoffed. Yulong, your hands that are shaking from excitement have already betrayed you. Imaginative horse, who stood behind Honghu mocked him. Xingshi, your eyes that are as wide as bells have betrayed you as well. Feng Bujue turned around to mock Brother Ma. Actually, he's normally like this as well. Atobi used both of his hands to gesture at his face. He's always been like this. While they were bickering, Uncle Worthless placed his hand on his shoulder and activated the talisman. Suddenly, there was a flash of white light, and what appeared before the players was, after some consideration, I decided to skip this part of the description. Ugh. The four players turned around at the same time and vomited on the ground behind them. So this is a scam. When Uncle Worthless said that, his voice did not change at all. Thankfully, there's no mirror. I don't want to end up like you. That happened. Feng Bujue showed a serious expression that he had not seen before. This appearance that transcends the sky, no, transcends the dimension, is really, ugh, imaginative horse gasped for air. Damn it. As a hero, it's wrong to judge a book by its cover, but it's because you bunch of perverts raise my expectations that ambitious vomit almost sprayed out from his esophagus onto the ground. This has nothing to do with the expectation, right? Atobi used the gap between vomiting to roar. Even Fong Bujue vomited. Hey, what are you talking about? Fong Bujue replied. Do I represent the bottom line of human decency? Huh, you reap what you sow. Uncle Worthless laughed. All right, the quest time is limited. Stop messing around and prepare to fight the boss. Then, he slowly sat down and laid down on the altar. Now, I only need to lie down, right? When the four heard the word, lie down, images flashed across their minds. Even though they did not look at Uncle Worthless, they could not help but vomit again. Ha! Suddenly, a burst of hearty laughter drifted over. The voice was magnetic, thick, and distant. Following the laughter, all the light stones in the hall glowed brightly. The light was so blinding that the players could not open their eyes. Only Uncle Worthless, who was wearing sunglasses, saw Waldron's entrance. A tear in time and space opened above the altar, and a human figure slowly descended from it. Waldron was an elf man with sharp ears. He wore a light green robe, boots, and a hood. He carried a banjo on his back, and he looked like a bard. His appearance could only be described as beautiful. His brows were like a painting, and his aura was as majestic as a mountain. His every movement had the gentleness and elegance of a woman, but it did not lose the strength and coldness of a man. It had to be said that compared to Uncle Worthless, who was lying on the altar, he formed an extreme contrast. A few seconds later, the light around them dimmed, and the other four players opened their eyes to look back. By then, the tear in time and space had disappeared, and only Waldron's figure was left floating in the air. The boss's first line after his appearance was, My believers, very good. You've sent me another cute girl. I can't wait to play a song for her. Come, let me see your face, my dear young master. The magnetic, thick, and distant voice let out a scream that could only be heard when a chicken was being slaughtered. Waldron could not believe his eyes. When he instinctively moved his eyes away, he could not help but look again. Therefore, he screamed twice more. What kind of reaction is this? Atobi looked at the boss with pity. Fong Buju added, This is the feeling of being kicked in the balls every time you look at him. You. Waldron did not know what to say. Before he could form a sentence, he could not hold it in anymore. The next second, Waldron dropped from the air and ran to the corner of the room. He leaned against the wall and started to vomit. Now's the time. Fong Bujue took out the cleaver and ordered, Okay. Atobi, Hong Hu, and Flying Horse answered in unison and rushed forward. The four made use of the fact that the god's body and mind were in a half-collapsed state, and they killed the boss in one round of attacks. 5 minutes later, he seems to have returned, Uncle Worthless said. The four who were facing away from him heard that and turned around. God! Atobi wiped his sweat. Thankfully, the duration of this disguise is not that long. At this time, they had already completed the previous main quest, used the altar in the sacrificial hall to summon and defeat the god of wandering, walk here within 15 minutes. The system notification had already sounded, but the next quest had not yet been refreshed. Phew! Fong Bujue also gave a long sigh. This is the easiest boss I've ever killed. By the way, you were a bit too harsh earlier, weren't you? Flying Horse glanced at the broken body in the corner and said, Did you think he was a piece of meat? If not for the system's protection, even the few of us would have been injured by you. You're right. I did think he was a piece of meat. Fong Bujue's answer was always so surprising. Now, the food is ready. Are you saying that you don't feel well without human flesh, Cg? Atobi added. Huh? Fong Bujue turned around with a roguish expression and raised one of his arms to point at Waldron's body. Is this a human? This is a god, okay? Even if we take a step back, this is still a fairy. It feels weird to be a fairy, Atobi replied. TSK, you don't feel weird after eating pigs and chickens? Feng Bujue scoffed. You feel pity after seeing a humanoid creature? How can you face the creatures that you've turned into feces over the years? If you're so capable, why don't you switch to eating mushrooms for the rest of your life? Why mushrooms? Even if you want to be a vegetarian, there are many choices. Atobi said, yes, with cucumber, eggplant, and carrot, it'll be perfect. Feng Bujue raised his brow. Don't cross the line. Atobi seemed to hear the hidden meaning in that sentence, and he added with annoyance, this kind of double trap is more than enough for you to be reported. In any case, I have to eat this time. It's your choice to go hungry. Feng Bujue was too lazy to continue the discussion. He turned around and walked toward Waldron's body. The next mission is coming soon. I need to use this time to cook some meat. That way, I can eat part of it and save the rest. This is crazy. Looking at his brother Ju's back, Uncle Worthless grumbled. A beast with a human face. Unrestrained, Pegasus added. How cruel. Honghu added. The three of them chatted among themselves as they followed Feng Bujue. In the end, he still followed. Atobi was slapped in the face by these people, but after he complained, hesitation appeared on his face. In the end, under the urging of hunger, he joined in as well. Moments later, delicious aroma filled the hall. The juices dripped from the meat and splashed on the fire, creating a sizzling sound. The branches of the tree of ridicule are indeed good at burning. Just 2 or 3 branches stacked together can maintain this fire for a long time. Feng Bujue chatted with his teammates. At that moment, Brother Ju was holding the cleaver horizontally. Using the blade as a plate, he grilled a piece of meat that was cut from the rib. I know you want to lighten the atmosphere, but I think it's better for us to remain silent. Honghu added. He was also using an arrow. Honghu had a few physical arrows in his inventory. They were consumables similar to special bullets. He was grilling a piece of meat. Ha! At this point, are you still conflicted? Feng Bujue sounded like a brothel owner. From the moment you guys gathered here to pick out the meat, you should have realized. He shrugged. But I can understand you. Everything is like that. It's easy to go from 1 to 2, but going from 0 to 1 is as hard as climbing the heavens. That tone of yours that sounds like a drug dealer, and your eyes that look like you're trying to force a woman into prostitution. That is so helpful. Ambitionist added another sarcastic remark to mock Brother Ju. Actually, he was in a relatively good mood. Uncle Worthless, unrestrained Pegasus, and Atobi did not want to say anything. Just as the curious atmosphere was getting more and more intense, the system notification came. Main mission has been updated. Pass through the corridor behind the altar in 1 hour and arrive at the Crystal Maze. Chapter 566. Whether we like it or not, life is always urging us to move forward. People prepare, depart, travel, and settle down. Wherever they stop, there will be a fire. Feng Bujue used a gentle voice to recite. From the migration of individuals to the transportation of ingredients, from the evolution of cooking methods to the flow of life and fate, the hurried footsteps of people and food never stops. What are you playing at this time? The wandering god on the tip of the tongue? Honghu added. Even if you suddenly come up with a poetic monologue, it won't change the current situation. As he spoke, he stared at the rib before him that was almost done, and there was a struggle in his mind. The new mission has been announced, so there is no time for you to hesitate. Hurry up and finish your meal. Don't act like a sissy. Feng Bujue's lips were covered in grease, and when he spoke, the smell of meat drifted out. Obviously, he had finished the rib that he had roasted earlier. However, Brother Ju, who was half full, still did not leave the fire. He wanted to roast more meat, wrap them up, and store them so that he could take them out to eat later. Screw it. If I continue to starve like this, my stomach will start to digest me. At that moment, Flying Horse roared. He closed his eyes and shoved the meat in his hand into his mouth. Then, he chewed madly. Several seconds later, he opened his eyes. It is not as disgusting as I thought. It tastes like beef, and it is quite crispy. Yes, it is bland. Fong Buju added. Unfortunately, if we had flour, we could wrap up all the meat and then steam it to create a delicacy. Cosmos, is it? Do you think I haven't seen that cartoon before? Atobi interrupted with a roar. Huh? Fong Buju laughed. I'm just kidding. Without salt and cooking wine, there is no way to season so much meat. Furthermore, if there is really such a big shumai, I'm afraid steam won't be enough, so we can consider using charcoal. Who is discussing technical issues with you? Do you have nothing better to do? Atobi grumbled. Yes, I have. Fong Bujua made a face that was asking for a beating. Hit me, you idiot. Fine, you win. Atobi's psychological defense was finally broken. He glared at Brother Ju angrily and then started to eat as well. Uncle Worthless then mumbled to himself, To clear this scenario, I've even changed into a girl. Even if I eat human meat, it's nothing. As soon as he said that, the other four roared in unison. We're still good friends if you don't mention that. Several minutes later, the players, other than Fong Bujua, filled their stomachs. Then they came to the front of the temple. This was the wall closest to the altar, and they hadn't explored it yet. According to the quest description, it is the tunnel behind the altar, so the entrance is either behind this wall or under the floor behind the altar. Uncle Worthless stood there and speculated. Considering that we are currently underground, there is an 80% chance that the path to the crystal maze will lead upward. His eyes moved to the wall. Brother Fong, how about you go and lick it again? It's not like I was the one who discovered the secret of the altar, Fong Bujua said as he walked to the stone wall. The light patterns recorded on the stone slab will appear as long as it is touched by a living creature, and there is no limit to the part of the body that can be touched. Even through clothes, that's enough. You don't have to go into such detail. Uncle Worthless advised. Fine. Brother Ju smiled like it was nothing and reached out to touch the wall. The next second, there was a hiss, and a thick layer of dust leaked out from the pattern on the wall, forming a cloud of dust. Seeing this, Atobi immediately took out his weapon, the large fan, from his inventory. He waved it twice and easily dispersed the dust. After the dust settled, the glowing pattern on the wall became clearer. Fong Bujua used one hand to cover his mouth and nose. It should be noted that after the battle with Fu Ling, he had removed his gloves and cleaned them up in his inventory. In other words, there was no sh*T on the wall, so don't worry. His other hand continued to press on the wall. Looking at the pattern, he said, as expected, the hint is still a mural. His teammates also poked their heads out to look at the pattern that was formed by the pattern. The mural before them was larger than the two behind the altar, but the content was not that complicated. In fact, it was quite easy to understand. The content of the mural was a humanoid creature standing behind the altar, facing the wall and playing the guqin. Underneath, it was a bunch of strange symbols. The system did not translate them at all, so it was unclear what language they were in. One enjoyable puzzle-solving time. Fong Bujua looked at the symbols with interest. After Hong, who saw the mural, he immediately turned around to walk to the banjo next to Walker's body and said, I think this is music. Yes, it is quite obvious. Fong Bujua agreed. But there is a problem. Music is a special kind of language. Even if we can deduce which elements the symbols are referring to, we can't predict which musical level the symbols are referring to. He paused and scratched his chin. There should be a further hint. Atobi, who stood to the side, looked at the two with a confused gaze and sighed. Every time this happens, I'm thankful that I have people like you on my team, Imaginative Horse shrugged. Actually, if you ask me, we should just break through the wall. About that, Fong Bujua turned to Brother Ma. I've already confirmed with the spirit of mimicry. It told me, the 5 gods use the power of spells to protect this temple. If someone uses brute force to attack the wall, it will trigger a counterattack spell. When the spirit of mimicry pretended to be you, it planned to use this method to kill someone else. Thankfully, it was stopped by Uncle Worthless. Tisk, Imaginative Horse continued with disappointment. These despicable people. He picked up the meat in his hand and took a bite. They only know how to play tricks like spells. TSK, TSK. So annoying. I say, are you sure it's fine for you to say something like that while chewing on someone else's knee? Atobi shook his head. Found it. By then, Ambitionist had already picked up the banjo and studied it for a few seconds. There are similar symbols engraved on the neck of the banjo. There are symbols under each string. As he spoke, he walked over with the banjo. Then this is easy. Fong Bujua turned back to say, just play it accordingly. Looks like solving this puzzle isn't that hard, but Hong Hu said as he walked, of the 5 of us, does anyone know how to play this thing? I do. Suddenly, someone answered in a very normal tone. As he finished, everyone turned to look at him. What's wrong? Is it that weird? Uncle Worthless asked with confusion. More or less. Even though Hong Hu said that, he still reached out to pass the banjo to Uncle Worthless. First, this is a rather unpopular instrument. Fong Buju added. Second, I really didn't expect Brother Chai to be such an artistic youth. Humph. I might be in my late 20s, but I have plenty of experience in life. Uncle Worthless dangled the cigarette in his mouth and accepted the banjo with both hands. I used to be a member of a male idol group. Atobi used a tone particle to perfectly express his current mood. Surprised, right? I debuted when I was 17, and the 4 people in my group were my age. At this point, Uncle Worthless had already turned his head to the side and slung the banjo over his body. The record company produced a few trashy records for us that even we couldn't stand listening to. After that, they even held a concert for us. He freed his hands and took another puff of his cigarette. Unfortunately, when we were 19, we were already past our prime. That was fast. Unrestrained gasped. Of course, I can understand that. Uncle Worthless smiled. After all, we're all 19. For an idol group, if the total age of the members is over 100, then we're considered old. Hey, what kind of planet is that? Are you a Korean idol group? Atobi could not help but mock. Now that you mention it, there was a Korean in my group, and I had quite a good relationship with him. Uncle Worthless continued. The second year after the group disbanded, he came back to join the military. He blew out another puff of smoke. 2 years later, I received a postcard and found out that he was married. His husband appeared to be his old comrade. Isn't that a bit too much information? This short conversation that was less than 2 minutes had already caused Hong Hu, who was known for his calmness, to sweat profusely. Air. Atobi's lips twitched as he interrupted. We have limited time, so let's focus on the mission. Then, he turned to his brother Ju and yelled, Hey, Fong Bujua, come and solve the puzzle. What are you doing? Pooh. Brother Ju was banging his head against the wall. I just want to erase some strange things from my mind, Fong Bujua said without turning his head. Today, I have seen many things that I should not have seen and do not want to see, and now I have heard many things that I do not want to hear. As someone with a rich imagination, I have to remove these substances that can seriously pollute my mind from the temple of my mind at the first opportunity. Chapter 567. After some observation, he quickly matched the symbols on the stone wall with the markings on the strings. Uncle Worthless' knowledge of music theory was quite solid. He familiarized himself with the banjo in his hand and started to play the symbols. The score was not long, and he could finish it in 10 seconds. The melody sounded strange, but it was not noisy. However, Uncle Worthless waited for 5 or 6 seconds after he finished playing, but nothing happened. He was stunned. Why is there no reaction? Did I play it wrong? Let's try it again, Fong Bujua said. Okay, I'll try again, Uncle Worthless said and played again. But the result was the same. Strange, this time it's definitely right, Uncle Worthless said. Looks like it's not a problem of playing the wrong note. Hong Hu adjusted his glasses. The melody you played before and after was exactly the same, not a single note off. That means you played it right the first time. Then, Uncle Worthless thought for a while. Is it because of the way I played it? That, I don't know, Fong Bujua said helplessly. Brother Ju's memory, understanding, and reasoning skills were indeed very strong, but knowledge was the foundation of everything. Since he knew nothing about playing the banjo, there was nothing he could do. Uncle Worthless thought for a few seconds and said, wait a minute. As he said that, he changed the position of his hand and played again. This time, before the sound of the banjo could finish, the light patterns on the stone wall suddenly lit up. Then, an area in the middle of the stone wall started to sink. So, I have to play the empty string. Uncle Worthless shrugged, took the banjo off his body, and put it in his bag. I studied the score for a long time, and it turns out I only need to play the empty string according to the order of the cymbals. I don't even need to use my left hand to play the strings. He paused and said, wait, if that's the case, an outsider can play it too. I don't have to do it myself. That's true, Flying Horse continued. However, even if I were to follow the order of the cymbals, I don't think I could succeed in one try like you did. He was quite honest. He even chuckled and said, right? Speaking of which, I remembered something. When I first entered the studio, I scored a 0 in the music game test. I didn't even press a single note correctly. You sure are a genius. Even if you use your armpit to play Guitar Hero but to play the dance machine, you wouldn't have gotten a 0, right? Fong Bujua said. And you have the gall to say something like that out loud. You even have the gall to show a smile that says you're not ashamed but proud of it. What I'm more curious about is, how did Constellation, which is known as the Star Factory, recruit you? Hong Hu continued. Isn't that simple? My test scores for other games are high, especially the fighting and gambling categories. They almost broke the studio's internal records. So that's how it is. He can fight and has a good character, Hong Hu concluded. Just as they were talking, the stone door in the middle of the stone wall suddenly descended. The moment it was completely embedded in the ground, it even let out a chi sound and squeezed out a lot of dust from the crack in the ground. Atobi waved his hands twice to fan away the dust, and then put away his weapon. It does extend upward, Fong Bujua said as he took out the catapult and used the light to shine down the corridor. It's about 2 meters tall and wide. If we run into a trap midway, it'll be hard to avoid it. He thought about it and turned back to say, Here, I'll be the scout. The rest of you just need to line up and follow me. Can you explain the basis of this strategy? Hong Hu asked. It was not that he was against Fong Bujua's plan, but the way the man talked to himself and used a commanding tone annoyed him. Fong Bujua's expression said, Are you King kidding me? Basis? Brother Ju repeated. He took a deep breath and then replied, To be more specific, it means that I am someone who is fearless in the face of danger. My reflexes are lightning fast, and my reflexes are lightning fast. I am more than qualified for the job of clearing the way here. He paused for a moment before continuing. To put it simply, I'm bold, careful, and handsome. Hong Hu narrowed his eyes and stared at Fong Bujua for a few seconds. I have to say, other than the handsome part, I really can't find anything to refute you. Since you want to lead the way so much, then go ahead. The other 3 naturally had no opinion on who would lead the way. If someone was willing to contribute to the team and take the lead, it was a good thing. Even if this person was a narcissist, it didn't matter. After all, he was still a very strong player. Therefore, the group soon formed a line and walked through the stone wall. From front to back, there were Fong Bujua, Flying Pegasus, Uncle Worthless, Atobi, and Hong Hu. With Brother Ju leading the way, the group moved forward at a leisurely pace and slowly entered the corridor. The top, bottom, left, and right of the tunnel were all flat and gloomy stone walls, giving off an indescribable sense of oppression. Without realizing it, the group fell into silence. Along the way, the only thing they could see was the featureless stone wall that was inches away from them. The only sound they could hear was their companions' footsteps and light breathing. No matter when they looked forward or backward, they could not tell how far they had walked. In this kind of environment, one could not help but wonder, am I really moving forward? Coming in after finishing the meet. That was the right choice. Fong Bujua thought to himself. This journey is much more dangerous than it looks. It's uphill from the beginning to the end, and the slope is getting higher and higher. There are no objects of reference on the walls, and the temperature is changing subtly. It's getting colder and colder. He turned back to look at his teammates, and all he saw were pale faces. The exhaustion of stamina increases, the sense of distance becomes blurred, and the psychological pressure. When all these conditions accumulate, the burden on the body will multiply. If we came in without eating, the additional effect of hunger will be unimaginable. He turned back to look forward and continue to think. In this kind of situation, the person walking at the front will undoubtedly be the most tired. Because they have to be on alert for any unexpected situation, they will have to carry an additional burden on their mind. With that in mind, Brother Jew revealed a relaxed and smug smile. Thankfully, I'm the one leading the way. Chapter 568. The Compound Anti-Gravity Catapult. S lighting function was undoubtedly better than a normal flashlight. Not only would the distance of a light be longer, its energy source was unlimited. Therefore, with Feng Bujue at the front, he could at least see further than the others. Furthermore, Brother Ju had no sense of fear. In the face of sudden and shocking changes, he would not hesitate because of a moment of fear. And most importantly, Feng Bujue had Soul's zero-time difference calculation. With this power as support, no matter what kind of situation they were in, he would be able to come up with a reasonable response. In any case, as Brother Ju thought, in this situation, he was the most suitable person to lead the way. With regards to the additional mental burden, it was not a problem for him. This was because his brain could not rest. It was constantly thinking about many things that were unrelated to each other. Without realizing it, the group walked for half an hour. Suddenly, Hong Hu, who was at the back, said, "The walls seem to have changed." "Yes, I noticed that as well," Uncle Worthless said. "Even though the color looks no different from the previous walls, but the walls of this part of the road seem to be able to absorb light." Is that so?" At the same time, he used his flashlight to shine on the wall next to them. "In any case, I can't tell, because my sleuthing mastery is higher," Hong Hu said as he pushed up his glasses. "So, my eyes are more sensitive to light." Uncle Worthless pointed at the sunglasses on his face. "My sunglasses are a special item, so I can see this difference as well." "Then what does this change signify?" Atobi asked. "Ha! Is that even a question?" Feng Bujue, who walked at the front, answered without turning around. "Something bad is about to happen." "Indeed, this should be the system using a hidden method to warn us of the danger ahead," Hong Hu added. "Don't worry, I'm more reliable than the system," Feng Bujue replied in a relaxed tone. "When the danger arrives, you just need to listen to my orders." "Stop bragging." Atobi narrowed his eyes. "No, Brother Feng is not bragging. He is indeed very powerful," Uncle Worthless said in a low voice. "In this tunnel, the pressure on the guide is much greater than that of us who are following behind." As he spoke, his eyes under his sunglasses looked meaningfully at Brother Ju's back. "If it were me, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the energy to talk to my teammates so easily." "Aha! Look, there are still people who know their stuff." Feng Bujua laughed. "Brother Chai is wise. TSK. It was easy for me as well. What's so great about that?" La la la. Atobi still refused to admit defeat. He forced himself to mock Brother Ju. "Yo, you seem to be quite energetic?" Feng Bujua's lips curled into a cold smirk. "All right, to boost the morale of the soldiers, let's sing a song. You're not going to sing Brother Ma's legs face west again, are you?" Hong Hu facepalmed. Brother Ju, you're so rare. The beautiful player couldn't defeat you." So a hater popped up, Feng Bujua sang in his deepest voice. "Wherever there's trouble, I miss you. Wherever there's danger, I'll be there. I've been through hundreds of battles, and I'll take the lead. I'll punish Shan Yang as a disgusting demon. Do you have any shame?" Atobi roared with his hands over his ears. The other three also had looks of disgust on their faces as they complained and cursed one after another. For a time, the beeping sound in the tunnel did not stop. That was the kind of person Brother Ju was. When his teammates' trust and affection toward him reached a certain level, he would easily break the bottom line and overturn all of their expectations and fantasies. It was hard to tell if this person was reliable or not. There are echoes in this tunnel. Hey, not bad. Fong Bujue finished his song and commented with a smile. It's just like inside a bathhouse. If you did that in a bathhouse, Uncle Worthless said, you'd be lucky if you were beaten up. That's right, if you ran into me, I'd drown you in the pool. Flying Pegasus added. Fong Bujue chuckled. You flatter me. You flatter me. I'm really not a professional singer. Who the F asterisk CK is praising you? Atobi yelled. Can't you tell the difference between good and bad? Just as these fellows were bickering and complaining, suddenly, fucka, 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 fucka. A strange sound rang out. It sounded like someone was playing clappers, but it wasn't as crisp. The sound came from afar and came from above. Fong Bujue heard it and straightened his face. He raised the searchlight and looked down. A few seconds later, a few strange black shadows entered his sight. Butterflies? That was Brother Bujue's first reaction. After a few more seconds, more and more butterfly shadows appeared. As the distance closed, their appearance became clearer. Upon closer inspection, each of the butterflies had wings that were shaped like blades, and each of them had the glint of a cold weapon. The bodies of the butterflies were as thick as a human's knuckle, and they were dark green in color. Above the heads of the butterflies, there was a pair of pincers. If there were only one or two of these things, the players would not have paid them any mind. They would have been killed with a few slaps. But right now, what was coming down from the top of the tunnel was a wave of butterflies. Turn around. Run. Fong Bujue only thought about it for 1 second before he roared out the 3 words succinctly. The teammates behind him did not hesitate. Once they heard the order, they turned around and ran. How fast should we run? The person at the front was Hong Hu, so naturally, he had to ask which speed he should maintain. We don't have to be fast, but we can't be too slow either. As Fong Bujue spoke, he took out Miss Moxie's bad temper from his inventory and fired at the butterflies behind him. Isn't that obvious? Hong Hu said, but he did not stop running. You might as well say, follow your instincts. Cut the crap. Can't you see that I'm busy with hit underscore and underscore run? A concept that first appeared in StarCraft. It refers to the skill of grasping the attack rhythm of a group of long-range units so that they can attack while moving. Later on, it became known as kiting. Is that so? Fong Bujue yelled. Brother Bujue finished the first magazine of bullets in the time it took for them to talk back and forth. Hey, Brother Bujue, Fong Bujue said to Flying Pegasus in front of him while he was reloading. Let me ask you something. What? Flying Pegasus looked back as he ran. Can you release Meteor Punch into the tunnel without hitting the wall? Fong Bujue asked. Huh, it's a piece of cake. Unconstrained Sky Steed replied confidently. In fact, Brother June knew that Flying Pegasus should be able to do it, but in this situation, it was best to confirm it just in case. Okay, let's switch positions. You'll cover the back. As Fong Bujue spoke, he gradually ran to Brother Bujue's side and nudged him with his elbow to make him turn around from the other side. That's exactly what I want. Flying Pegasus turned around and faced the swarm of butterflies. He said boldly, how can a hero run away in a panic? In a short moment, he was in position and aimed at the swarm of butterflies. He launched a punch. Pegasus Meteor Punch. As someone who did not feel comfortable shouting the name of his skill, he had to shout it out. In an instant, a silver-white fist radiance flew out and gathered in the middle of the tunnel to meet the dense swarm of butterflies. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of collisions echoed, and then there was the sound of metal falling to the ground. Very good, we'll hold them off like this. Fong Bujue saw how effective Flying Pegasus' attack was, so he yelled, Hong Hu, stop running, Brother Bujue will hold them off. When the 3 heard that, they stopped moving and turned around. What is that thing? Atobi asked. I didn't get a good look. It's a kind of butterfly-like monster, and there are at least 1,000 of them. Fong Bujue used a fast speed to share the information that he had observed. They fly faster than normal butterflies, and their attack method is temporarily unknown. He paused before continuing. Their wings are as hard as steel, and they can take several hits from bullets. I've used up a whole magazine of bullets, and the number of butterflies that I've killed is in the single digits. So, I've decided to switch to someone else. Meteor Punch does seem to be very effective. Uncle Worthless looked over Fong Bujua's shoulder at Flying Pegasus. And this guy didn't even land a single punch on the wall. That's right. If it was my Rain Kyaku, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Fong Bujua followed Uncle Worthless' gaze and added, even though I have no idea whether this tunnel is part of the temple or not, it's best to avoid hitting the wall directly. If some kind of counterattack spell is triggered in this situation, then it'll be dangerous. Be careful. Some of them have slipped through. Flying Pegasus suddenly turned back to shout, and his teammates, who had just sighed in relief, were shocked once more. I saw that coming. Hong, who said calmly as he stepped forward. He pulled open his bow, and a light arrow gathered at his fingertips. Watch closely. This is what it means to shoot continuously. His plan was to use the high-speed, continuous shooting of light arrows to destroy every single one of the monstrous butterflies that managed to pass through. This tactic was extremely risky. If one of the arrows missed or brushed past the target, the light arrow would hit the wall immediately. However, from Hong Hu's expression, he was brimming with confidence, and there was no hesitation in his eyes. There's no need to go through so much trouble, right? But to their surprise, a Tobi-sama stood before them to block their path. In the face of such danger, he was as calm as ever as he took out his weapon again. Item name: Peacock Screen Item Type. Weapon quality: perfect defense points, slightly powerful element. None special effect. Comes with the skill Miss Screen, cooldown time, 10 minutes, equip requirement. Fighting remark. After activating Miss Screen, the Peacock Screen will gain double damage for 10 seconds. During that time, a wave of the fan will create a strong gust of wind, dealing AoE damage. If I knew it was just a bunch of butterflies, I would have dealt with them myself. Atobi said as he walked to stand 2 steps behind unrestrained Pegasus. He turned to the latter and said, "Brother Ma, move aside. Let me do this." In this group, only Fong Bujua knew about Atobi's real ability, and everyone else thought that he was a top fighter. They all believed that, since Atobi was the leader of Hyodii, his individual combat ability would not be weaker than any of the 3 from Mingnan's group. Therefore, unrestrained Pegasus moved aside without any hesitation. At that moment, the most nervous person was Fong Bujua. He was afraid that Atobi might have screwed up. Who would have thought that things would go so smoothly? Atobi held the large fan before him and gripped the handle with both of his hands. Then, he started to spin it clockwise like a stick. Layers of strong wind immediately rolled out in front of the huge fan. Like an invisible drill, it advanced step by step, crushing the strange butterflies in front of it like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. In just 5 seconds, Atobi cleared the wave of butterflies. After that, he waved the fan and put the weapon back in his backpack. He turned back to say smugly, "See, it's not that complicated. You're really something." Fong Bujua put the gun away and wiped the sweat from his brow. "I've been away for 3 days, so it's only natural that I look at you in a different light." Of course, Atobi added, "Do you think this is still the same as when we were at Chonglin Town? My current equipment has long since been replaced with a new one. All right. If we run into something similar in the future, I'll leave it to you to deal with," Fong Bujua said as he returned to the front of the group. "Let's continue moving." The 5 packed up and returned to their original formation. They continued on their journey. After another 7 minutes, Fong Bujua finally saw a purple light flashing in the distance. "Phew, that's probably the exit." Brother Ju gasped for air. By then, the slope of the corridor was close to 45 degrees, and it was quite tiring to walk. In terms of time, we should be there soon. Naturally, he had his reasons for saying that. In the previous half an hour, Fong Bujua had used the wild ball punch again. Therefore, he could roughly estimate the time limit of the mission from the cooldown of the skill. About 5 more minutes. Hong Hu answered. It looked like he was counting the time as well. By the way, have you guys noticed? Recently, in the hints for these two missions, there was no mention of you'll be wiped out if you exceed the time limit. He paused to catch his breath. Has it been omitted? Huh. Of course not. Fong Bujua chuckled. Indeed, there is no erasure. What? Everyone was taken aback. Think about it. The mission, summon and defeat the god of wandering Walker using the altar in the sacrificial hall within 15 minutes. Fong Bujue continued. There are only two situations where you can't complete the mission. The first is you fail to summon Walker within 15 minutes. The second is you fail to defeat Walker. He licked his lips. I don't think I need to explain the latter. Since Walker has already taken care of us, what's the point of wiping us out? As for the former, it's very likely that it's a certain death plot. You're saying, if Walker's summoning is not completed after 15 minutes, then there might be some changes in the sacrificial hall? Uncle Worthless followed Brother Jew's train of thought. That's right. For example, a super defensive spell in the sacrificial hall might suddenly activate and wipe out everyone. Fong Bujue said, in other words, if we don't complete the mission, there's an 80% chance that we'll be wiped out, so there's no need for the system to wipe us out. When he heard this, Ambitionist said, thoughtfully, then, the rule about reach the crystal maze realm through the tunnel behind the altar within an hour works the same way. Yes. Fong Bujue said, perhaps when the time is up, the corridor will collapse or implode. There's no need for the system to intervene. You have a point there. Honghu nodded. That is a pattern that is worth studying. In the future, we only need to look at whether there is a sentence about wiping out in the mission description, and we'll be able to predict how we'll die if we don't complete the mission. Actually, it's pointless to pay attention to that now. Fong Bujue shrugged. I believe the term wiping out will no longer appear in any of the following missions. Why is that? Uncle Worthless asked. Because as the scenario progresses, the environment that we're in will become more and more dangerous. Fong Bujue said in a rather somber tone. From how I see it, for the following missions, not only will the wiping out, perhaps even the time limit will be canceled. We're finally entering, unrestrained thought said. The rhythm where we'll be under constant threat of death. As they spoke, they reached the end of the corridor. Before they stepped out of the corridor, Fong Bujue saw the crystal phenomenon outside. When they were about 10 meters away from the exit, he put away the catapult in his hand because there was plenty of light outside. After taking the last few steps, the five of them finally walked through the seemingly endless path and arrived at a brand new map. Looking around, there were many crystal pillars that stood up like mountain rocks, and they formed a giant crystal maze. A bright purple light shone out from the crystals, and it lit up the surrounding environment. The strange light and the disorderly path created a sense of space-time distortion. The strangest thing about this phenomenon was the sky. The sky was not covered by the purple fog, but there was no moon either. When the players raised their heads, they saw a piece of land. The land looked so far away, yet so close at the same time. If one studied the terrain closely, one would feel a sense of déjà vu. Current quest completed. The system notification arrived as scheduled. Hearing that, the players felt as though a rock had been lifted from their hearts. How much stamina points do you have left? Atobi was the one who was gasping the most. He sat down once he stepped on the ground. Not much, Fong Bujue replied. But it should be better than you. Before the new quest refreshes, we'd better take a break. Even Hong, who sat down. He licked his lips. Even though we've eaten, we haven't rehydrated ourselves. Thirst will only increase the loss of stamina points. We have guests. Suddenly, a woman's voice rang out. Needless to say, she was not a player. The last human who successfully entered the Defiant Island was a very good explorer. I wonder, who are you people? That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.